Oh, I didn't have my YouTube muted.
Oh.
So then I started hearing doubles. I got worried.
Double Mograph. Okay, Matt, Jeremy, Town, Paul, Todd, Jeff. What's up, y'all? Right. Yes. Go to our faces. What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us.
Hello.
Up on the streams. We're getting ready to go here. Setting up our audio.
Lauren, I'm watching the famous group stuff. It's so cool.
Is it famous?
Yeah.
Ah.
Infamous. Never heard of them.
All right. I got a new file here. I'm ready to record. Is everybody else ready to go?
I am rolling, yes.
I am rolling.
Jeff Burns,
as well.
you're not Winbush. You can't say that.
Somebody say what up, what up?
What up?
Yeah,
what
exactly.
Up?
How dare you?
All right. Is everybody rolling?
I am rolling,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. I'm going to do a sync clap. It'll be 1, 2, 3 clap. You ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Awesome, awesome.
Perfect.
I just remembered my monster's in the freezer. I should grab that before it explodes. Hold on.
Yep.
First things first. No exploding energy drinks.
Right? Oh, man. Just got to make it through this week. And then I got to make it through the month. And then I
Right.
just gotta make it till July. And then I'll be good. One day at a time.
All right.
You'll see my new fancy new Mograph.com hat. Ooh, so nice.
Fancy new microphones.
That's
you know.
that's legit.
New actual Mograph logo. Ooh, pretty.
Flex fit. Super fancy.
All right.
Cost me way too much money
I love
because I couldn't buy it.
swag. Yeah, I love swag. I love
Mm-hmm.
getting stuff printed on stuff. It's, I don't know. It's like some fun, dorky stuff to do.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff we all get.
Oh, Dave, I lost
Swag.
you for a second. See?
You what?
Say something.
What?
Okay, see, now you're fine. It's weird.
It's
It's,
just
like
Skype,
it's like if
man.
you stop talking
It
for a
doesn't
little
sound
bit.
like that on the stream. It's just on the.
Okay, well
yeah.
that's all that matters.
Yeah, I gotta love Skype.
Here it gets
Friggin' Skype, right? Am I right?
freaking Skype.
Yeah. Okay.
See.
I
Okay.
have all the things up and running. It looks like we are good. So we're ready to go. And without further ado, let's let the learning begin. Here we go. What's up and welcome to another Mograph Mocast. I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt, and joining us today is the super talented Lauren Fisher.
Hello.
And Mograph is a supplement to our site, mograph.com, which is a motion graphics tutorial site with tutorials, plugins, podcasts, and other Mograph stuff. And on the show, we talk about everything ranging from motion graphics to Cinema 4D, After Effects, plugins, render engines, doing business, doing taxes, being a contractor, or working for the man. You can email us info@mograph.com. Let us know what you think about the show, questions, comments, concerns, queries, show topic ideas, artist suggestions, and grievances. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, mograph.com, all the places. You can find us there. Send in your questions. We ask this every week. Noob, expert, different topics. What do you want to hear? It's important because we want to know what you want to hear about. And we do include the grievances. Why do I bring this
Yeah.
up?
Just know if you send us grievances, we may read them on the air.
Especially if you say, I don't give an F, read this on the air, which is
Right.
why I'm bringing this up. Two reasons. Number one, of course, like I just said, the grievances thing, here they are. Now we can address them if there are grievances, correct? So what I would like to say is please don't comment or email us while admittedly drinking, because I think you might regret it and I think you might delete it later. So I'll start with that. And
Yes.
I'm only addressing this because he wanted us to read this, so we'll do that. It was a complaint.
Make sure and censor some of the parts.
I'm not reading it word for word.
Okay, good.
This is what I wanted to say is that we got a complaint that we are a circle jerk podcast. and talk about too much technical stuff that nobody cares about, like render engines and NFTs, and nobody wants to hear about that. And we can't cater to every single person and make it exactly what you want it to be.
We try
and
as much as we
cover a little
can.
everything for everybody. And he also said we elevate only the popular artists, and the industry is ageist, and we don't cover that. And he said he's not getting enough work, and we're selling this, quote, fantasy freelance lifestyle. And a freelance life and freelance gig is about what you put into it. I told him we cover these topics, and if there is something like covering ageism or something like he was talking about, to send us the email, let us know, because that's how we cover these topics. He said we're on our high horses and that we don't know what it's like going from making good money to making nothing. And I got to tell you, as somebody who in the crash was trying to pawn things to get money, to get gas, to get to work,
Yeah.
I could say I have been there. And then after telling us what circle jerking terrible people we were, he proceeded to tell me that he didn't like how he was treated in the Slack a couple years ago. And my thing about the Slack is we feel like, I mean, there have been some very small Slack issues from time to time, but in general, everybody is so welcoming. We try to make it a welcoming place for everybody for different types of work, for different races, for different religions, for different genders, different lifestyles, whatever it is. We try and bring everybody together in this community. And if somebody has an issue, you should let us know like right away, not like
Absolutely.
later when
because
it's too
if
late.
stuff like that is happening, we want to know.
We definitely want to know, because this is a great community and we're trying to keep it that way. And so he doesn't like that certain people were a certain way, and it's like, okay, well, there's over 1,000 artists or more in there. There's plenty of people I'm sure that you could get along with. He likes art for art, which I understand. Some people they don't like commercialism in art, whatever it is. And I said that that feels like a really good place actually for NFTs, because artists who want to do art for the sake of art and get paid for their art are really enjoying that fact in NFTs.
Yeah.
But he also said that NFTs are BS. So he deleted the comments.
Which some of them are. We'll get onto that during the drop, because I got some words.
But he deleted the comments. He emailed to apologize for calling us a bunch of circle-jerking, high-horse fantasy pushers, and then proceeds to end the email with F you and whatever Mograph video production your stank ass came on. I'm like, okay, well, that seems
All right.
counterproductive.
That's pretty funny.
But that leads me to point number 2 on this, is don't be a dick. Like, you'll get so much further in life as a motion graphic designer. Just be nice, friendly, treating people the way you want to be treated. I can't stress that enough. Like, you get exactly back what you give. You want to call that karma, or whatever you want to call that. You know, it's my true, genuine suggestion in this case would be to give it a second try. We're all friends here, and I encourage you to give it a second try, a new approach to it, and just see what happens when you put into the universe what you want to get back. I feel like that's a good way. Give it another try. The community's here for you. If you're frustrated with it, I understand. Some people are, not doing well in freelance, and it's frustrating. I get that, but I think that people are here in the community to help you with your issues. And you may not like everybody, but I'm sure there's somebody out there who can talk to you and help you get through these things. So
yeah, 95% of the people that I've met in this industry are more than willing to help and lift up and just amplify any other artist. We're not here to hate.
yeah,
At least a good majority of us aren't.
yeah, community's still here. So hit us
Yeah.
up, and we're here. Other things just in the week wrap up. Of course, Lauren is here with us. We're gonna get to all the fun things in a minute, and a couple just real small things. We did have an article that came out this week, and it's about a project from the mill. Make sure you check that out, mograph.com/news. We got another article that's coming up this week as well. And the only other thing I had here, you just had a note about licenses, just a note for people to know about licenses on Maxon One.
Here's something that's interesting. So I discovered this. So I don't know. I've been trying to like discover things about myself and the way that I work, because I find I get distracted a lot. You know, my oldest child was diagnosed ADHD, so I'm like, could he get that from me? Do I have a little bit of this? You know, so I've been a lot more cognizant of like getting distracted and stuff. And so I wanted to, I needed to use both my computers,
nothing.
you know, and I feel. Oh, did you say something, Dave?
Yeah, you were talking about being distracted, and I was like, what? Never mind.
Oh, see, I can't
Dumb
hear
joke.
you. It's
Dumb
like
joke.
everything you're saying is like cutting out. It's like it's
I
like there's a
love
noise
Skype.
gate or
I
something.
love Skype. Here,
Yeah,
let
see, I
me-
can't hear you
let
right
me
now.
fix it for you. You can probably hear me better now, right?
I can, yeah.
Okay.
But we'll see how it
All
goes.
right. Well,
Anyway,
it
so-
always fixes it. So anyway, the stream could hear it just fine. But what I was saying was I was making a very quick and not funny joke.
Right.
So
And it got me distracted.
Continue.
So, anyway, so I had both my computers running, and I wanted to. So I don't know if anyone, I'm sure everyone's had this issue where you just can't have Cinema 4D and After Effects open at the same time because they just don't like each other or something.
Well,
so
graphics cards probably.
yeah,
don't-
graphics cards, whatever. I don't understand how I can have two 3090s, like 128 gigs of RAM, a 14-core 28-thread machine, and I still can't run Cinema 4D and After Effects at the same time, right? Without one of them crashing. So anyway, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to use Cinema on this machine. I've got another machine that I mostly use for my emails, but it's got, and a render machine. And it's got two 3090s in it. I was like, okay, I can render some stuff over here. So I opened up Cinema 4D on the other computer, and I opened up After Effects on my main computer. And then my Red Giant stuff was like, oh no, this isn't licensed to this computer. And I come to realize that if you are a Maxon 1 subscriber, where you get all of the you get Cinema 4D, Redshift, and all the Red Giant things, it is tied to one computer only, not one application. So, which is annoying, because if I want to use After Effects and C4D at the same time, I have to have them open on the same computer, and that just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I'm going to what sucks is, like, if I had known this in the beginning, I would have just paid the extra $125,
Have the separate.
you know, to separate
Yeah.
the two licenses, you know, so that I could use them on two different machines.
That's an
So,
interesting
anyway.
thing, and I don't think a lot of people probably have come across that. You know?
Yeah.
And maybe it's something they could address. Maybe it's just something
Yeah,
nobody's really
see,
thought about before, and that's
I-
understandable.
I would love to see, you know, yes, you have one license, but it's licensed per application versus per computer. You know, I get it's probably easier to do one
Sure.
computer versus one application, but it just kind of that irked me, you know.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it was like $135 to separate the two. You don't get Redshift, but I don't really care, you know.
Yeah.
If I needed it, I'll just rent it. But
well,
I mean,
plus
I don't know.
I have a Maxon 1 with the Redshift license that you could use, because
Yeah.
I mean, I just got Maxon 1, so I have an extra Redshift license.
Right.
So,
Right. And
yeah.
so it's like, I don't know. I was annoyed by it.
When you have to do something like that in the middle of a job too, like that's
Yeah.
it, like throws you, you know, you feel like you're 5 years old and you're just like, you just want your stuff to work, and you
Right.
like having to step back and then maybe email Maxon or email somebody and get that all figured out. It's like you're not prepared when you're in the middle of a job to
Right.
deal with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and so now it means I've got to take the time in order to call up sales and be like, hey, I want to cancel this. I want to, you know, switch over to this, you know. And it's like, when you're in the middle of a job, it's like, I don't have time for that.
When
Yeah.
you
So-
open up a new version of Cinema 4D to work on a project, and you realize you don't have Forester, and you're like,
Right.
oh, that's
Again,
gonna be a
yeah.
process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guess I'm going back
Yeah.
to the old Cinema 4D because I won't have
Yeah.
Forester for 3 days now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went through. I switched to. I did the same thing where I use Red Giant Universe when I'm in After Effects, and then I went to go use it, and it's like this handoff from Red Giant Universe and their installer to Maxon 1, and it didn't end up being a very difficult solve, but it took me a while to find it. And again, I'm just trying to like render something out of After Effects.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to think about this. I don't want to email someone or look at, Reddit or whatever it is I have to do.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, anyway, we're very vulnerable. It makes you realize how vulnerable we are to, the manufacturers of our tools.
Yeah.
And if we make a change and we need things to go smoothly. We work on razor thin margins and razor thin timelines. So those kinds of things can feel very more scary than it sounds, and it's like, well, just whatever, call them and, or render one at a time, stay up all night rendering,
right.
Before the day, After Effects at night, get over it. But when it's, you're on a job and it's business, it's more serious business.
And Rick
Speaking
says,
of the manufacturer, Rick's in the chat.
Yeah.
He says, just to clarify, you can jump between machines with the deactivate, activate in my Maxon. Yes, I totally. You just can't use two machines at once.
You couldn't be rendering an Octane over here in Cinema and then go to your other computer and go like work on the comping for the other thing.
Yeah.
It's understandable why it's that way. It's just good to note if you're planning on having like multiple machines.
Yeah. See, Rick also says, I think the way it works mostly designed so enterprise customers don't split a Maxon 1 and give the Red Giant to the editors and C4D to the 3D artists. Understand it's not great for freelancers, but the way I was thinking about it last night. It's like, why as an enterprise customer, like a studio, if you've got a mixture of After Effects and C4D people in their own separate space, why would you buy Maxon 1 in the first place versus just spending the extra $125? Because then you can just split them up.
Because one artist is going to be a 3D person and one artist is going to be a comp person.
Right. So why would you want to do all of them?
I'm sure that it's a lot more difficult behind the scenes than it.
Oh, I'm sure.
It seems to.
Come on, Rick, just fix it.
Yeah. You just hit a button, right?
Sorry,
we're all the same.
Please fix it.
Yeah. So anyway, we don't really have any render stuff today. We're just going to get right into it. About your background and history and everything, and start from the beginning and tell us about school or not school and how you ended up doing what you're doing now.
Yeah, and I think I'm the perfect person to not talk about render engines, actually. I'm the right guest because I know them. I'll get into that. We can get into it a little bit as far as what I use as an artist, but it's not my focus. It hasn't been. So I did go to school for what I do. I went to undergrad for photography. I went to Ohio University. I'm from Cincinnati originally. And I loved school. I loved learning art. I got really into film while I was an undergrad and graphic design, just art in general, but especially film and graphic design. So by the time I finished my photography degree, I was like, I want to keep learning. I want to study animation. I'd always loved animation, but it's not especially, I'm going to age myself. I graduated high school in 1999. So this is in the before times, before YouTube, before so many things. So even the idea of motion graphics as a career was something I didn't even know about yet, really. So I decided I wanted to go to graduate school. I wanted to study animation. I had more to learn. And I also wanted to get out of Ohio. I felt like I needed to, it wasn't crucial that I leave Ohio, but I needed to learn more. And so I applied to a couple of schools, but really CalArts experimental animation program was something a friend of my father's had told me about.
Experimental animation.
Yes.
That's cool. That's cool.
Everybody knows CalArts. I think a lot of people know CalArts a character animation program. I mean, it's basically like a factory for, Disney animators and Pixar animators and just amazing people. But and there's two programs. There's character animation and experimental animation. They used to be one program, and then they sort of split them up because there was more interest. But it really started out as this very like treating animation as fine art. That was kind of that it's an art form. It's not just this sort of vocation or something that is necessarily, which I love cartoons. I love character animation, but that there's more to that world. It's a huge wide world of experimentation and moving image. So they split off the programs, and experimental animation has plenty of character animators. Steven Hillenberg is one of the notable alumni. He created SpongeBob SquarePants, and he had a what's great about this program. I could go on a long time about it, but it was a graduate program, and they wanted people that didn't have animation backgrounds, but were really interested in learning this art form and could bring something else to it. Steven Hillenburg had a marine biology degree.
That's right.
Was brilliant, had a great scientific mind, and you can see where it applied to his creativity. His student films were amazing. He did a student film called Wormholes, which I keep trying to find. Maybe CalArts has put it up, but it's super trippy and fantastic. But so I got into CalArts, which was a miracle to me because it was my dream school. It could have been on Mars. It wasn't about it being in LA. It was about this program to go and learn animation without this expectation of you. I'm not like a master draftsman. I can't really draw. But they saw, I have an eye. I have an eye for design. I love to create things. I love computers. I love, there are all these different things that I love to work with, and that worked well enough for them. And so I went to CalArts, and it was fantastic. It was just a great program, and it's not a highly technical. It wasn't at the time. I learned After Effects there. I learned Maya, which I hated Maya, like with a passion. It turned me off to 3D for years, actually. Even after I started my career, I was like, I'm not a 3D person. I'm not a 3D person. So after I graduated, though, I got into broadcast design. I got an internship while I was at CalArts, and started working at a company called New Wave Entertainment, doing broadcast design. So main title sequences and show packages and network packages, and just like thrown into the fire, broadcast design. Same with working in like trailers, like that kind of a world where you have lightning fast like turnarounds on a lot of things. And it was like a boot camp for me. So that's really where I learned a ton of my software knowledge. So at CalArts, I learned to respect myself and as an artist and as a creative mind, and have 3 years to be there and yes, learn technical things, but to just make my art and figure out what that is, and be around some really brilliant people. But the technical stuff and that sort of learning, I freaking really learned on the job, on the fly, from my coworkers, and just experimenting, just trying things and learning through trial by error, a lot of errors.
Did you get into Cinema 4D at that point?
So at this point, Cinema 4D was like a very, like a light kind of 3D program. It wasn't what we know today of Cinema 4D, or at least in my perception. And I think, it was like, oh, you can make 3D type in it. And it felt like this kind of not something that was a heavy hitter kind of 3D software. And then, like I said, I learned Maya at CalArts, and I respected it, but I was like, the way I can't be creative in this program. You have to like know a math equation to get to something, and I need to be able to see it and experiment and play with things, and it needs to be in my hands much more. So, like I said, for years, the first 4 years of my Mograph career, I like wouldn't even think about 3D. I was like, that's not for me. I'm not a 3D guy. I'm not a, I learned After Effects really well. I mean, After Effects became my soul, my bread and butter, and I really loved it. So I'm glad I did that. But right around the time, so I worked at New Wave. I worked my way up from junior designer all the way to art director. I had a great boss named Scott Williams and an executive producer, Shari Jacoby. They really were like, they believed in me, and they threw me into opportunities a lot that I didn't think I was ready for. They let me like direct shoots for Disney Channel. I was like to talk about, we did the main title for Wizards of Waverly Place. Nice. And Selena Gomez, nobody knew who she was. Like, I had a master's degree in experimental animation, and I'm sitting here directing these green screen shoots, with real, they're child actors, and there were some, the parent actors, but I'm directing them. But like it's really great to have a boss, especially at the beginning, that saw something in me and knew that I would go in and do that and I wouldn't F it up,
Absolutely.
Luckily I didn't. So I got this great experience in live action. So that was always my thing, is like combining live action with animation. I love photography, film, live action, but I also really love design and animation. So always combining those two things. And then, so I worked my way up, and I this was the crash, 2007, 2008. Things were getting weird. I luckily, thank God, I wasn't laid off, but like things really had shifted. And I felt like, you know what, this isn't a time to sort of hunker down. This is a time to kind of like keep growing and keep going. So I left. I had a stint at a company doing marketing, and that's a whole other podcast. But I did a year where I was basically like on the client side of doing trailers and marketing for independent films. And then after doing that for a year, I was like, I miss making stuff. I miss Mograph. I miss animation. So I was like, I'm a freelancer. That was like my big business decision was like, I posted on Facebook, I think. I was like, hi, I'm a freelancer now. Like I left my job.
There you go.
And this is a big thing with the network. My friend Will, who I worked with at New Wave, was working at another company called the Famous Group. And he's like, hey, you like sports, right? And I was like, yeah, I do like sports. He's like, you should come and work here. You should come and, try it out. So they hired me as an animator. And this is like my big moment. I love to tell this story, and I'll keep it brief. But I started there. They hired me just as an animator, even though I had been art directing and directing stuff. But I needed to prove myself. Right. So I did this job, and it was like for the Cincinnati Reds. So I was excited about that. But it was like they sat me down and like, okay, what we want you to do is like, we have these live action plates, and we want you to animate on these billboards that have footage on them. And they are like Transformers. Like even today, this is like kind of a hard shot that like, I don't know, breaking up video across planes and having it unfold and putting in a live action plate. So I sat there and grant you, I had like just started learning cinema right before I left New Wave. So I was like not good in 3D, but so I sat there, I gave it like a couple hours where I just sat there and was like, let me just see what I can do. And then of course I couldn't do anything. So I walked into the producer's office and I was like, Nick, I think you might need somebody else for this job. Like, I don't think I'm good enough in 3D at all. Like and no harm, like, I'm so sorry. I can totally leave right now. I was like firing myself. I was like, I'm out of here. I failed. And I was like freaking out in my mind. I was so excited to work there. My first freelance job at Famous was like a really cool company. And I felt like I was failing immediately. I felt like an imposter. I was like, I don't belong here. And I'm going to quit. I'm going to change careers. It was like this big disaster. So Nick was like, no, we'll give you some other stuff to do. And like they gave me other stuff to do. And Will was like, no, you guys, Lauren's really awesome. Why don't you let her pitch on something? Keep her around. She's really good. They let me pitch on a couple of things and my pitches won. And after that, it was like off to the races. Like I started doing some of my best work in this space in sports. And I was given all this creative freedom. There was something, and I loved sports as a kid. So there was something in my little like child and my inner child was connecting with the adult artist and like, give each other a high five. I love that. Something magical started to happen. And I started making really great work with Famous and several other clients over the years. But really Famous was one of my key clients that they just let me pitch these wild ideas to sports teams and for events. And it was great. Like it was some sort of magical chemistry happened there.
What I think is interesting, and it's so funny because your story right here goes back to kind of what we were talking about with the disgruntled listener earlier. It's like you were able to flourish really well in this industry because you had like either a boss or a mentor or whatever who let you experiment and be yourself and like, try and encouraged you,
Yeah.
And I see for me, for like 12 years or 10 years or something, I worked for someone who was very negative, and it wasn't until like I basically worked my tail off, he finally was like, okay, you can do whatever. But it was like, I feel like I feel like everyone should be that person in order to encourage more people, to just to be themselves and be better, I don't know. I think that's I feel like everyone's success can come to almost who their boss is or who their mentor is, and it's great to hear that.
Yeah, it's that thing, and I guess it's like a cliche, but like opportunities come and they have to find you working. So it's like this combination of like I was working really hard, right? I was putting myself, I wasn't like demanding opportunities without trying, putting myself out
Putting in
there,
the work,
learning, putting in the work. So it's
Yeah.
that magic combination of like hard work. There is like a talent thing and the opportunity, but it's like the hard work is like the biggest one. And then being open to the opportunity, which is terrifying too. Like maybe if someone does give you an opportunity, you sell yourself short before you even get there. You're like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And I think a lot of us say no to ourselves first before we can even get that opportunity. So it's like being open and saying yes even when you're terrified, and putting yourself out there before maybe even you think you're ready. It's like it's this weird it's like this weird chemistry thing of like, because if I had like tried to start my career having known everything technically possible. I mean,
Right.
I threw myself
Right.
into freelance where like I like barely knew cinema. I knew after I wasn't inexperienced. So that's the
Right.
thing. I think some people come out of school and they're like they become a freelancer and they expect to be the most highly professional, all these different things where it's like you just started. And for me, that was what was good was I started at a company for 5 years where I sort of got that structure and understood how a business works, because what freelancing really is, I mean, you're a small business,
Yeah.
you're opening a small business, and that is risky. It's scary. It's like, and all this stuff we were talking about too at the beginning about like community. Not everybody accesses community in the same way or feels comfortable in the same way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it can feel homogenous. I think it's really interesting, that conversation at the beginning, how interesting it is, like what we do, like Mograph, like animation. It's this very singular thing in a lot of ways where it's like it's you and your computer and your creativity, right? You're alone in a dark room all the time, and so when it comes to like our community building, I think it's hard. We're challenged in a lot of ways because of the art that we make, the style of art that we do, and the sometimes it feels like you need to be like a lone wolf, but it actually you don't need to be. But I can say for myself, I'm not somebody that's like been to all the conferences and been huge in the community. I've just been somebody who's like been like worker bee. I'm just like work. And that's my community, is like the people that I work with, the work that I make. I try harder now to like open up, and especially because I feel like I have something I can share. I think when I was younger, I was like, what am I going to tell somebody, or how am I going to like help anybody else? And I just stayed very kind of insular. But anyway, I think that was a really interesting thing at the beginning. And I sort of, relate to that feeling of it's easy to feel like an outsider when we're all outsiders. We're all, like this is our business is very small in a lot of ways, and very niche, and you're very vulnerable. It's a creative industry.
Yeah.
There's just so many things. It's like, we're not accountants, this isn't zeros. It is zeros and ones. We're using computers, but it's not black and white, and it's this very subjective thing. And
because like, I mean,
it's not rocket science. It's computer science.
With an accountant, an accountant, they put their stuff in Excel. They get the same answer every time, no matter which accountant does it. But if you were to say, give me this with a floor and blah 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 and blah, 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 and you explain all this abstract ideas, every single person is going to do it different.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I see it all the time when I am lucky enough to get to like direct projects where I have artists that I hire and that are, interpreting a vision that I have, but I'm trying to let them be themselves too within it. Yeah. And it's really interesting to see how everybody approaches this, like you're saying, the same creative problem. And sometimes it's the right fit and sometimes it's not. And it's like, it's not because you're not awesome. It's because this particular thing needs this particular point of view.
Right.
And it's just like, it's very tough. Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough to deal with changes. It's also tough to deal with criticism, but I think everybody in our industry does a pretty good job of giving constructive criticism, because obviously, you go back to the old days, those old forum days of doing motion graphics back in the day. I posted my first reel and it was garbage. Of course it was garbage. But some people actually gave me real feedback, and some people just told me it was garbage. And it's the people that gave me the real feedback that actually helped. So there's no real point in telling somebody what they're doing is garbage, even if it is garbage. You have to give that constructive criticism and say, this is what I think. Because I've seen a lot of frustrated people that were in the same boat as I was at that time, where it's like, hey, look, I technically understand all these things. So here's my demo reel. Mm-hmm. And everybody's like, well, that's garbage. I'm like, why? I understand all the technical details. Well, you don't know anything about fonts or typography or colors or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay. Let me go study that stuff. Yeah. That's constructive. And all these years, and I still don't know how to do it. So it's so helpful to have that community that can help you do that. But my question for you on that point was like, how did you know you were ready? Of course, that's a bad way of phrasing it. Nobody knows when they're ready to go freelance. Yeah. But did you do any prep for it? Did you say, okay, I'm going to save some money? Did you just go out and do it? What is that? Because we talk about the freelance life, the glorious freelance lifestyle, and we all struggle with it. We all have problems. Yeah. Even once we become successful, it's still that feeling like, we still have so much more to do. We got to keep selling ourselves. But being prepared to do that, as prepared as you could have been, what steps did you take?
I will be honest, and don't do this the way I did, but I didn't prepare. I just this is kind of a little bit how I am, and this is not really, sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. But I think I had been working full time at a studio for so many years. And then I had my sort of 1.5 year stint at another place where I was just bursting out of there to come back to what I love to do, that there was just something where I was like, I'm just going to throw it out. I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid. And I can't remember what the hell I was thinking, financially, why I would do that, because I am a freaky person about that kind of stuff. I don't like to not know what I'm doing next. And I'm not good at that. So it is very honestly a little bit out of character for me to have done it that way. But I think I was prepared I had enough confidence. I had been, like I said, I had that foundation where I had been doing this work for 5 years. And I felt like I knew what I was doing, that if it didn't work out, I could always scamper back somewhere and find, get a full-time job somewhere. Right. But to me, this is me I probably gave myself, a month to book a job. I think that's probably what I told myself. Just give yourself a month to throw your name out there and see if somebody will bring you in, because I have the luxury too of being in Los Angeles, where that was weird for me to have a full-time gig and to have worked my way up. Most of the people that I knew that I went to school with or that also did motion graphics, they were freelancers. It was they were like, whoa, you have a full-time gig and you worked your way up. It was very uncommon. So maybe there was some part of me too that felt some comfort in knowing that most people in the business that I knew in my circle were freelancers and were making it somehow. But I'm sure if Will hadn't reached out to me, or if, I would have freaked out very quickly. I wouldn't have, flown in the wind for, I didn't have money saved up for 3 months or 6 months or whatever to let that happen.
But at that time in your life, were you at a point where you had a bunch of people dependent on you financially or any of that? Were you single? Because I feel like depending on where you are, if you're married with a family and a bunch of kids or something, that's a higher risk. Yeah. If I were single or something and 23 years old, I think I would feel a lot better about hopping off into that freelance life, Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was very lucky to not have dependents and I had bills, I had my gargantuan student loans. I'd pay private art school in Southern California. It doesn't pay for itself, but I was very lucky in that sense where I didn't have that situation where I had to keep feeding my family and a roof over everybody's head, and, a roof over my head, and those bills paid was my main objective. And I was 28 when I went freelance. So, and I'm a late bloomer too. To me, Like,
I
or
don't think
that was the
so.
right time. That was the right time for me, you know.
Yeah.
Like I said, I meet people. I met some kids that like a week ago that went to Otis, and one of them, like, she's already freelancing, and she's
Yeah.
like, really,
The
her
thing
work's
is,
really good.
like,
It's just
you also have
depends.
to keep in mind, like, where the three of us, the time in which the three of us grew up, the same thing you were talking about earlier. There was no tutorials online on
Yeah.
YouTube to try and figure it out. You just had to jump in, and if you didn't have the time to jump in and spend the time to figure it out, you know, it's like what the advantages that the younger kids, the
kids
younger
these days.
generation, and the kids these
The
days,
youths,
the
yeah,
youths. Hello, fellow youth.
yes,
But the advantage that they have is that they're able to just hop on YouTube and watch some of the tutorials that we've even done, to try and figure it out. And that's why I think so many of them are able to jump in a lot sooner than we were when we were that age.
Oh, you want to
Yeah.
figure out
Because
this Mograph thing? You got to sit there for 5 hours and just figure it
Right.
out. There's no
Exactly.
Googling.
like
But
if I wanted to figure out motion tracking or whatever, or even green screen, I didn't know how to do green screen out of college. It's like, and you had to rely on Andrew Kramer to teach you everything.
my man, my man,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
And
If Andrew Kramer didn't teach it to you, you didn't know how to do it.
Right.
yes, but that's the thing. I think it's also that it's a double-edged sword, because I think because of that, there's this expectation that you're supposed to be this very like high level, high concept, like that you can do all these things because you have those things accessible to you. But it takes time. It takes time to build up a skill set, and you can see it, like like someone who's learning, is at the beginning and is doing things that are very it's student work, but you can see the potential in it. It's still the same world in a lot of ways, but you can learn those technical skills more quickly.
Yeah.
If you have, but then there's also the money barrier though. And Blender, I think, is a great thing for this.
Yeah.
That I don't use Blender, but if I was starting out, I would certainly
Yeah.
give it a really hard look.
Yeah.
But the hardware is very expensive still. So that's
Right.
I really preach, like, because this is me, like I want people to know, especially people starting out, or like the render engines and the like making things look so like that's really fun. It is really fun. I started using Octane a year and a half ago. But you don't need it to make really awesome stuff. You don't need all the bells and whistles. And I don't want anybody to ever feel like they're held back by that. Like we'll talk about the show that I worked on, but like more, I don't know, like 85% of that show is like standard render, physical render. Yeah. We have some tent pole shots where it's like we wanted this really realistic lighting and things like that. But a great deal of it was like, I need really fast renders because I don't have time. I don't have a big fancy render farm. And so but it all looked great, and it was because of the core of it was the creativity, the story, pushing the story, and not necessarily what the render was and the bloom and the reflections
or plugins.
all that.
I just kind of like that with plugins too. It's like, well, why doesn't my stuff look good? I have all the plugins,
Yeah, right.
And we've worked with people like that before too, where it's like they're so into plugins, they're so overly into plugins that it's like, what's going to happen when you have to do something by hand, when you're going to have to keyframe something by hand or create something on a different computer and you don't have all your plugins installed. I think it's dangerous to get too reliant on those.
Yeah, it can be.
And just stepping back and it's about the art, and whatever's fast, I think you can really lose the art in the technical, for sure.
Yeah. But the technical is very fun too.
It is fun. And there's people who are super technical, and there's people who are super artistic, and I think that's the biggest thing. And especially, coming back again to that conversation earlier about the audience, there are people who all they want to do is just study shots and colors and why somebody used this focal length of a lens and all of that, and that's wonderful stuff, and that's stuff that you need to know. But then maybe they don't know the technical side. Then there's people who know the technical side really well, and they could almost, I would say I fall into that category for sure. I can take a render and technically match what somebody is doing technically, but if you ask me to do something like that from scratch, I have that thing, you open up the blank Cinema 4D, and you put a cube in, and then it's like, okay, I don't know what to do now.
Yeah. There is a need and room for everybody's different ways of approaching creative problems and that's the thing too about normally like filmmaking and animation. It's such a collaborative process. There's people. I remember, this is another thing that I remember at Cal Arts when I was like, do I want to go work and do visual effects, or do I want to, and then I realized, I was like, oh, there's somebody at Pixar that they just do bubbles. That's their thing. Or they just do water sims, and and first of all, that's freaking cool. And it's this science and creativity. It's it's amazing, but I was like, that is never going to be me. And I'm never going to fit into a pipeline in that way. Because it's just not what I want to do. It's not why I think I was made. However, I'm made. But we all. I rely on people to. You have to remember that to really make something good, you need to rely on other people if it's going to be the best thing, especially for bigger projects. And I'm working on a project now where I have amazing asset modelers that I'm like, here's a picture, and then 2 days later he modeled it. He modeled this very intricate thing from a photo, and I'm like, oh my god, you're brilliant. And then another guy I worked with who modeled for Greatness Code, this guy modeled busts of the subjects. From photos, not from here's these beautiful series of photos and you can make it, you can make it into a model and then clean up. No, I'm like, here's some Google Images photos, and he would turn around some really great busts that look like these people. And I could never do that. And then if that wasn't in the piece that I did, the piece wouldn't have the same identity and it wouldn't have the same impact. And so the trick comes though when you want to be the person to do it all, which I have the tendency can be that way sometimes, where I'm like, I want to,
Same
concept to completion, and I want to have my hand in it in some way, and letting go of that and trusting your communication skills and trusting your team members. Yeah.
It's so hard to give up.
It's
especially when some of the stuff, we're working on a big project right now, and we've had to hire 5 or 6 freelancers in order to help us out, and we're passing off some of the work that I really wanted to do myself.
Oh yeah.
Because it's cool work, but it's all right, we just got to get the job done.
Yeah.
There's some of them where it's I'm working on a bunch of things too in other other projects and other Mograph related things, and it's come across these things that I could do on that project that Matt's got, and I'm like, oh man, I really want to work on that. I'm gonna try and get it in, and then I'm having trouble getting to it. And it's the only reason I'm really wanting to get to this is because it looks fun, but I need to learn to just let it go and let someone else do it if it has to do with the pipeline.
Yeah.
I was able to squeeze in one fun project. All the things that we're doing are fun for the most part, but this other one was very different than everything else that we're doing. It was for another client, and I was able to squeeze in a couple hours at 9:00 last night, and I was like, wow, this is refreshing. Okay, I'm liking this. This is different, and I don't know. It was cool.
I'm curious what you think about in sports graphics. I don't know what it was, because I was working on quite a few logos the other day, and there's something so enjoyable about it to me, and it almost to me feels like doing sports logos, really intricate ones, appeal more to people who like to do architectural renderings.
Yeah.
Because it's you're engineering something. It's you're building a piece of something, some sort of a piece of gear, or I don't know how to explain it. You go and you're putting in grids and pieces of metal and bolts and neon lights and all of that, and making it real intricate. There's something satisfying from an architectural standpoint. Does that make sense? I don't know.
It does. And it's really interesting. the span of like the sports work that I've done, and I think a lot of people at the beginning when I first started doing sports stuff, because I was so not 3D, it actually was a benefit, because I think some of the stuff I was pitching was very refreshing to some of the teams, that I wasn't pitching big, beautiful 3D. I'm going to answer what you're saying though, because you're totally right, Dave. But now it's more sophisticated. I think the conversations around like visuals and what is sports visuals, and it's so tied in with pop culture, and the teams want to connect with more and more fans, and it needs to feel elevated. But to answer what you're saying, you're totally right. Like on a granular level, and like the visual language of sports design, it's like, it's not, it doesn't have this emptiness, which I'm sorry to brands, but like we love brands, but something that is a team logo has this kind of like, it's like your coat of arms. It's like something very personal, something that has an emotional thing that all these fans are connecting to. It has this kind of like purity to it, and like you want to instill this sense of like, this is a real thing, it's larger than life, it's tangible, it's alive, it's, you know, you want to imbue all these, is that a word, all of these qualities onto this symbol, because it means something really huge and really deep, and it connects instantly with this fan base, and it is a really great design problem or design, you know, exercise to respect that, to elevate it, but also maybe to play with it, to tweak it. An interesting thing like that I've brushed up against is like teams like really don't like to bring their mascots to life much, or to like bring, like it has to, there's this reverence, it's almost like this holiness, like don't, and obviously you don't want to like make some cartoony weird thing, but like anytime you dance with that, or you get even close to like bringing something to life in that way, it's like, no, we never do that. It's like, it's this holy thing, and it must be, you know, it's like a statue. It can't, you know, come to life. That would be weird. It'd be like animating a religious figure or something. Like you just don't do. But yeah, it's I haven't found like a really succinct way to describe why like the sports are such a fertile ground. Like for me personally as an artist, it's like, I always try and say, it's like, oh, it is connected to pop culture. Like I said, it's connected to, there's an instant sort of affinity that you have built in for the work you're doing, and this desire for fans to be closer to the team. Like if you're making like an Apple commercial, it's about selling a product. You know, it's not like, I want to be closer to Apple. Like I want to be I want to be, you know, closer to the people that make the phones. It's like, it's this different thing where it's like, you're trying to make everyone feel closer and more connected, and more, you're a part of the team, and you're hyped, and like, you know, we're all trying to be like Drake on the sidelines of the Raptors. Like he got a ring, he's part of the team. Where like it's that level of like connection that you're always going for, which is, I think, very fertile creative ground to jump from, is that, because that's what all art is. It's like this communication and connection, but the spirit of sports connection is like triumph and heart and winning and togetherness and all these like really pure, wonderful things. So sorry, I got very
no, you're fine. What's interesting is and this will like kind of push us into another topic. What's interesting is if you look back in like sports specifically, like say you're watching a football game back in the 80s, right? The motion graphics that they have were maybe an introduction and then just the text on screen of the scoreboard, you know? I'm not sure if they had these like transitions, you know, and the wipes and stuff like that. And it's like now there's an absolute explosion in interactivity as well as just, you know, on-screen stuff. And that kind of brings me to the Famous Group and what you've been doing with them, because if you check out the website, thefamousgroup.com, what's your position there again?
I am the Chief Creative Officer.
Yes. So, and that's got to be, if you look at the stuff that y'all are doing over there, it's so much more like what you were talking about, where you are bringing that one-on-oneness to and just like amplifying the interactivity between the sport that people are watching and the people who are watching it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really unique space to work in. Like in some sense, especially now that we're getting, and we can, this is like a whole other topic, but bringing in obviously mixed reality, augmented reality, mobile apps like that's the new frontiers. But before that, you know, when we were creating open videos, the delivery, we would deliver a 1080 video, a 60-second open, but we'd also be delivering like all the LEDs, all that we're thinking about what else is happening around this stadium or this arena. It's just, yes, you're like enthralled by the Jumbotron and what's playing and the music, but it's this wider canvas and it's playing for a live audience, which is really unique.
It's like concert visuals, like where you have to think about what the lights are doing, what the other LED walls are doing, light strips, all of that, and how it plays into it. Yeah.
It's this 360 experience. And so things that you might think would work for like a commercial spot might not work for an open video. Right. And then we started getting into projection mapping, which, on the court, on the ice, on the football field. And that's sort of like perspective tricks and bringing this element of magic and this kind of like, almost Cirque du Soleil feeling of like, whoa, the things are falling through the ground and like bringing all this like performance aspect and making it really not only something that is engaging, but like super entertaining and like makes you want to come there to see it. Like, oh, you have to make sure and get there on time to see this particular thing. Right. And as a like, I loved music. Like one of my dreams besides being an artist was to be a musician. And I play the drums. I always dreamed of being on stage, but I feel like I achieved it. Like there's been a couple times, oftentimes I'm not there to see my work in a stadium because it's the other side of the country or whatever. But the times that I've been there, like I was at the Final Four a few years ago when we did Projection Mapped Open. And that's a football stadium full of people. And they're college students mostly, so they are very hyped. I mean, you could you could blow a kazoo and they would be hyped, but the open played and the whole stadium went bat crap. Like they freaked out and they were screaming and shit. Like they got super, and I was like hearing it and I'm like sitting in my little like cubicle, like having worked on this for 6-8 weeks, and it was like just an amazing moment of so full rewarding. Circle, like, wow, my job is really awesome and like this was really worthwhile, all this hard work and everything. So getting back to the famous group though, seeing work in that space, creating work in that space is truly unique. And now it's exploded, as you said, Matt, into different ways of using technology to do those types of visuals in the stadium, and then finding a way to connect with people outside, people that can't be there in person, because it's a very like exclusive thing. Tickets are expensive. You're not in the city. Not everybody gets to experience that. So I think one of the frontiers that we're thinking about at Famous a lot is like, how do we bring this experience to everybody and make it less exclusive and have it live in this sort of multiverse, or the in arena experience, the in stadium experience, but what next? It's got to be more. It's got to live beyond.
Isn't it funny how like a lot of times now you don't, if you've done a lot of work in Mograph, you don't get to see everything when it actually plays. There's a lot of friends who are like, oh, I did this thing for like, I don't know, Times Square, billboards in Times Square and all that. Did you get to see it? No. No, I didn't. Nope. And it's like my mom.
You're across the country and it's like, I did this for Times Square. Can someone who lives in New York go take video for me?
And they're like, I'm not going to Times Square.
Right. My mom is always like, I'll be like, she's like, what are you working on this week? I'm like, oh, it's some, VFX thing for some commercial, whatever. And like the next week she'll be like, well, did you get to see your VFX on TV? I'm like, no.
No.
Well, why not?
Yeah.
You should go find. I'm like, like
I don't have time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
you just kind of get used
I've
to
seen
it.
Mom.
I've lived it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've probably seen in person that kind of work maybe 2 or 3 times, like 3 jobs maybe out of so many. The NBA All-Star Game was another job that I got to do as a freelancer, where we did visuals for the halftime performance, and I got to work on Sting was the halftime performer in Toronto at the All-Star Game a few years ago, and I got to work on the whole thing, and we got to watch him rehearse.
Oh,
So it's an empty bowl, closed rehearsal, so a totally empty arena.
Yeah.
And I never do this. I'm usually like hiding in the back, but like I was like, I worked so hard on this. Like I stood like in the middle.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say hi to Sting. I maintained my professionalism, but I did stand like almost right in the middle of the basketball court and just like watched. Like I was like arms folded, watching like a private Sting concert with the visuals that I had done behind him.
That's awesome.
Again, another like big like holy crap kind of moment. In this, I would have never guessed. Like if you had gone back to me as a little person, you know, at Ohio University or Cal Arts and been like, you're going to stand there and watch your graphics on a Sting performance, I'd been like, what are you talking about? I don't even know what that means, actually. I mean, I know who Sting is, but what's concert visuals or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But go ahead.
So I was gonna say with some of the stuff that you're doing at the Famous Group, y'all are doing a lot of this, like I want to say it's motion tracking, but it's not really motion tracking. It's like you're adding a whole nother layer within the video, you know. And I feel like this is becoming a big thing lately. Like my kid loves The Masked Singer, and he makes me watch it every week. And especially because of COVID, like there's been this whole, let's add Unreal Engine, let's add these elements in it, you know, track the camera, bring it into the space. And at times you're like, I don't know whether this is actually happening or whether this is fake. You know?
Yeah. So our big Famous Group's big foray into, and there's a lot of like umbrella terms, but we've settled upon as the umbrella term for augmented reality, virtual reality, extended reality, all the realities is mixed reality. Right. So nobody, you know, ping me if I, you know, don't say the right type of reality, because it's a little gray sometimes. But we did this for the Baltimore Ravens. We did this project for them where we had a mixed reality Raven fly into the stadium.
It's incredible.
And it's like, you know, the size of like a pterodactyl. It's enormous. Right. And it blew people's minds. It was so photoreal, and the lighting. We did a LiDAR scan of the whole, you know, stadium. Did this beautiful bird animation and model, lit it really well. Like realistic lighting. Was a nighttime shot, so it comes off from off screen from the dark into the light, swoops around the whole stadium and lands. It was so simple. Story wise, it's very simple, but in that simplicity and in the fine details of doing it really well, people did not understand what was happening. It was a live. Yeah. This was like a live performance, and it was kind of like. It was very exciting because it was up to the cameraman to, or woman to get the bird in frame, you know, live, because it's playing in Unreal, but that it's a real camera that someone is having to follow this bird around the stadium and have everything hit right, like just like a live performance.
So so is the camera person able to see what's going on?
They can see it in their monitor, like on their Yeah, they can see it there. They have the feed, you know, of the married.
How do y'all? It's
like they're on a virtual production stage.
Yeah, like, is it is actually, is it like tracking the background and tracking the camera? Pardon me, because I don't know any of the mixed reality stuff. To me, it's absolutely, it's so mind blowing that this stuff can even happen.
Yeah.
Yes. It's such a wonderful new frontier, and I think the most exciting creative work is still yet to be done. I mean, there's some really incredible work that everybody's doing, but this idea of putting video game engines in the hands of visual effects artists, Mograph artists, and they can make beautiful real-time rendered images, because there used to be just so many limitations, right? It's like you have to make everything flat, and there's all this technical stuff, which you still have to do in Unreal to make it very lean and optimized.
Right.
That is the tricky thing about making this transition. But I will say that Unreal Engine has made it this huge leap of like, this is in the hands, like I said, same with Cinema 4D, where it's like it puts it in the hands of creative people in a way that you don't need to have the creative people are in this room, the technical people are in this room, and they like never talk to each other. And it's like these separations are getting smaller and smaller in this world. But you were asking about like how it's done. But the most simple way to describe it is like you create everything in Unreal Engine, you create everything in 3D, you have an actual scan of the stadium to scale, and you create your animation, you create your lighting, and then you have a tracker head on your camera that is telling the virtual scene, the virtual camera, it's matching it, right? So you have a live feed and a perfectly matched virtual camera, and they marry together. And so wherever that Stipe head or Moses, there's manufacturers that make these tracking heads that attach to the camera, and then there's dots. There's a lot of technical stuff.
The ones where they like point up to the ceiling, right? And then the ceiling has like some infrared markers or something on it.
Yeah, there's different ways of doing the actual tracking, but the most essential thing is that you have a camera that is giving you positional data,
right?
That can speak to your real-time 3D render engine, and they can get and be married in real time,
It's expensive AR is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
On a huge, just on the scale of it too.
Yeah.
When you have it on a really huge scale and you need the lighting to match, and it is a big technical undertaking, but the possibilities of it, of the storytelling and having things, spilling out onto your stage and living live in your scene, the magic of that, being somebody there. I wasn't at the Ravens activation when they did it, but it was, everybody in the stadium was freaking out. It was on ESPN. It was on
seeing
Sports
the video, like it looks real. It looks real.
Yeah, and people like it was in the news. Got all this like earned media because it was like, what the heck? Like it was some kind of magic, and and the thing that we're trying to push that now, and like what else? Because that was really just the beginning, the storytelling opportunities for this and the interactivity. And the other thing too, it's like when you've created all of these assets, you now have this like beautiful game ready like Raven or game ready thing, and like what can you use that with? Can you use that in mobile AR now? Can you bring it home with you? Can you have some sort of thing where it's, or a web experience, where you do a virtual experience online? There's, because you have these assets now and you're world building, there's no reason for you to leave it in the stadium. You can take it with you and tell stories all throughout your universe, your fandom, wherever they may be. It's really fun.
Once AR gets big and it's less about like having the gear locally to do that. It's like just if it's in the mainstream where like, okay, obviously everybody has AR glasses, then it's like that's going to be really fun, because then you can feed these live experiences to these people. They'll be able to see it like from whatever their angle is, I can't even imagine where that's going to go. But it seems like that a sports experience in that aspect is going to kind of flow into that. Can you imagine you go to a game and you can just see the field and you can see like the markers and everything on the field, and the score can just come up right in front of you, like a lower third just sitting in front of your seat, and the type of thing you did like with the fly-in. I mean, that can just happen, and from where everybody is, they'll be able to see it. It's going to happen.
It is going to happen. My joke with my colleagues the other day was like, You know, there was a video that Vice did about a gentleman who kept this and keeps up this really old motion graphics device. I'll have to remember it. I'll find it and like put it in the chat. But
I think
you
I know
know,
which
this
one
is
you're
like,
talking about.
yeah, he like, I wish I could remember. This guy was amazing. It's like this huge machine that would make motion graphics, you know? And I was joking with my colleagues. I was like, guys, this is gonna be us when we talk about our like computers and our render engines, and they have their contacts that do like quantum computing, and they, you know, they can see AR with their contact lens or retinal implant or whatever, and you know, that is where everything will head, for better or for worse, you know.
Sure.
Meet the engineer preserving the last analog motion graphics device. Is that what it is? Yeah.
Go and love him. I love guys like that. I met, you know, if you went to film school, or like, there's always the guy like that who's maintaining, you know, the Steam Deck or the, you know, the down shooter, kind of those great analog machines, which you just can't replicate ever.
The 3/4 inch deck. There's one guy who still knows how to use it.
Yeah.
That's right. Beta.
Yeah.
Beta. Freaking beta.
And Betacam SP and Betacam Digibeta.
Oh, Digibeta. Oh, that's like a $10,000 machine,
right?
That does Digibeta.
More than that. I still have the Betacam deck that was original MSRP of like $75,000-$80,000.
Yeah.
Good lord.
I bought one on eBay for $250 because I was going to try and do some freelance work with it, and then just ended up throwing it away.
Yeah, I remember the tape room at New Wave. Everything had to go to tape, and it's really nice now. It is. I don't miss any of that stuff. There's some like great, the analog, you know, workflows and film, and I still really love film. But God, ever since I was a kid, there was something to me magical about like computers and making art with computers.
Yeah.
I was like never ashamed about that, really. It was like I needed even like a camera. A camera is like this device that helps you make images, and same with computers. Like that, you know, I just love those kinds of tools and things like that. And I don't know, I lean into learning new stuff. Like I was messaging you guys, like learning Unreal, like is daunting, and like learning new workflows and different ways of making imagery, or even new ways of like what storytelling is, you know, like everything, like questioning everything, like linear storytelling, right? Like I'm going to render you a video from start to finish. I choose the camera angles. I choose everything. Like in a way, like that is maybe going to be antiquated. I hope not, because I love films and but could it be antiquated, or could it be something that, you know, kids who are young and coming up now, and so much of their media is almost like games or metaverse or Fortnite, like where if they're going to have a story told to them, it needs to be in the metaverse when the story is told. And there's a part of me,
the Travis Scott concert, right? If you ask any individual person about their experience,
I'll be right back.
Watching that Fortnite concert, each person's going to tell you something different, because they all had a different viewpoint of what happened.
And it's like this that is sort of like the culture is very like we're all the lead character in our little game, and like what I saw and what I'm interested in, and having these very bespoke experiences. It's just like, it's mind blowing. And the fuddy-duddy in me, you know, the old person is like, no, like there should be authorship, and like there should be this person who's like giving you this experience. I don't think that'll ever just like go away, but I do like to marvel at it, and like what those possibilities are, and what, you know, and also how can I be a part of it is the tricky thing too. Like I said, like trying to keep my beginner's mind. I always like to talk about like how great it is to approach things as a beginner and to learn a new thing, and how unpretentious you can be when you're learning something. Like I'm taking, you know, slowly, because work is so crazy, but Winbush's Unreal class, I can't recommend highly enough. He's so great, especially if you're coming from the Mograph world. But thinking about things in that space and what's possible, like I'm like, I want to make a VR experience. Like I can do that now. It might be weird and like bad, but I can do it now. Like I have the technology, I downloaded Unreal for free and I can play with it and make these experiments. It's just, I don't know. I think it's just an exciting time to be making the types of work that we make. But it's also hard because there's so many different directions to go. There's so many skills to learn. I think it could probably be also very overwhelming.
For sure.
All of our conversations about renders and gear, and it's like it can be overwhelming, even for me. Like I just have to sort of be like, compartmentalize. This is what I'm going to do. I thought about earlier in the year. I was like, maybe I should go back and learn Maya because. Ooh. Assets from Maya, like they play nicer, like maybe I need to. And one of the people I work with was like, Lauren, don't go back and learn. I mean, if you really want to, do it, but just let the experts do their thing. You don't have to sit there and make beautiful models in Maya and that kind of stuff. But Substance Painter is really cool.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Sure. Photoshop for textures.
It basically is. Yeah, and I try and get into it. I go through these bouts where I get into it a little bit, and then I have to move on to something else. But it's just another thing to learn. So, like you do.
I know. Just we all have to be patient with ourselves, and just like try things where you can. I learned Octane in the middle of a project. So the Greatness Code, the TV show that I worked on. Like I said, a lot of it, especially from my computer, I just didn't have the machine. We didn't have like a render farm. I was just doing stuff on my iMac Pro and needed everything to be really lean. But we had an artist, Vinny Thomas, who is an amazing 3D artist, and he works in Octane. And when he started the job, he's like, "Can I work in Octane?" I was like, and he has his own machine beefed up. And I was like, yes. Because I was like, let's have some of these really slick, kind of very realistically rendered shots in this. And he did a great job and did beautiful shots for the show. And then towards the end, like when it was me having to work on a lot of shots, I was like, I'm going to try it. And I just like I actually had to buy a new computer for myself. That's a whole other thing, because I was a Mac person.
Yeah.
My entire life since I was 10 years old. Like I've used a Mac and loved using a Mac. And so I just, in the middle of a project, was like, I'm switching to PC. I'm learning Octane. Like I just like, I did, and it was the best thing. Yeah, it really was. Like rather than, just messing around, I was like, here's the shot. I know what I want to do in this shot. Now I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then, ask Vinny if I get into trouble.
Yeah, it's good to have somebody who knows. We've worked on some projects over the years at other companies before we're doing what we're doing now, and they had Octane, and it was kind of like I kind of already knew Octane when the people coming in did. It was the same thing. They were learning Octane while they were jumping in. It's so good to have someone, not just Octane, but like Cinema 4D, After Effects, whatever it is, somebody that really knows the thing you're jumping into. And it's especially great, like if you're working somewhere where there's someone just there, it'd be like, hey, how do I do that thing? Because they can tell you and you have to bug them a lot, but they can tell you that thing in like 2 seconds that you'd have to sit there Googling for like 30 minutes. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's easy. You just hit this button. Okay.
Have you guys had like the internet go out while you're like deep in a project and then realize how many times you look up how to do stuff that you think you know how to do? And I'm like, wait, how do I do that thing? I'm constantly looking like at YouTube videos and stuff to do my job, even though I consider myself to be a pretty, good. I never like calling myself an expert, but like I can work at a high level, but like I got to Google stuff all the time.
All the time.
And
it's an art in itself, knowing how to Google to get what you got to get done, and that applies for just like every job at this point. Hopefully not if you're a surgeon or a doctor, but how do I do the surgery?
How to perform heart surgery.
What render engine to perform heart surgery?
AskJeeves.com.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
Yeah. Tell us about Greatness Code, and now I've got to go run to the restroom. I couldn't make it. Yeah. I'm old. I'll be back. But y'all start talking about Greatness Code. I'll be back.
I just stay dehydrated. That's how I get around all this.
I got like a super sore throat right now, so I'm like drinking way more than I probably need to.
No, it's good for you. You
Yeah.
should. You got to hydrate, everybody. That's my biggest lesson, even though I just
Yeah.
said I stay dehydrated. um, so yeah, Greatness Code was like my dream project. So years ago, I love documentary. That's like I love documentary and I love animation, seemingly disparate things. And I remember years ago, somebody asked me like, what would be your dream thing to do if you could like pitch something? I was like, I would love to do a sports doc that like mixes animation in. And like there's like a blank look on his face. He was just like, well, how would that work? Like, what do you mean? It's a documentary. And I was like, I don't know exactly, but I think I could. And then, so years after that, I was introduced to a really amazing director named Gautam Chopra, and he did Muse, the documentary about Kobe Bryant. He's done some really amazing docs and is a really talented guy. And so I was very excited to be introduced to him. He needed a title sequence for his TV show about Tom Brady. And at that time I was freelancing and I was like, I don't really do title sequences anymore, but I will do this because it's a cool project and I really want to know this director. And I did that title sequence and we hit it off and did a couple more things together. But then he came to me and said he had an idea for a show that would combine these sit-down interviews with animation. And the first one was with LeBron James, and he tells this really great story about the moment that he felt like he made it, like he had it. And the way he describes it, he uses all these metaphors. He talks about like how he felt nothing. He's like, there's this big lead up. He's like, all this pressure and I lost and people are going to say that I'm not clutch and all these things. And he's like, and I got there and I felt nothing. He's like, I felt absolutely nothing. It's like, holy shit. How do you illustrate that? And then like, he's like, I felt like, and then when he finally made it, he's like, I felt like a master sommelier. You know, I could smell, I knew where that's from those vines in that region. That's what I felt like. And he just, all these really weird, cool metaphors and talking about what he went through. So Gotham was like, this begs for animation to illustrate this. It's not a B-roll thing. So he gave me this story and was like, what do you think? What would you do visually with this? And so I sort of worked up kind of like a pitch that I brought back and presented some ideas for how to approach the visuals and how to create sort of a line between many of these stories, not just his, but and we worked together on that. And then it was basically like, okay, go make it, you know. And I got to do the pilot. I hired some animators and we created this 5-minute pilot with his production company is called Religion of Sports, and they sold it. They sold it to Apple.
That's
and
awesome. Wow.
Every step along the way, you guys, I was like, okay, any minute now, they're going to be like, all right, Lauren, thanks for the memories. Like, we're going to take this, get a real person to work on this. You know, in my mind, I was just like, just happy to be here, just happy to be helping, you know, move it along. But then, so when it sold, they came back to me and they're like, yes, we want to hire you to do the rest of the episodes. We're going to do a full season with all these amazing athletes. And Tom Brady, Shaun White, Alex Morgan, Katie Ledecky. There were, how many episodes do we do? 8 episodes, and
how
they're
long are
short.
each episodes?
They're like 5 to 7 minutes. They're short episodes, which you know, we wish they could have been longer, but it was and it was fantastic. So it was me and 2 other animators. And Emily Eckstein and Vinnie Thomas were in the trenches with me. And like I said, Orlando Silva did all those busts for each episode. But it was like a very lean, mean team. And the timeline was crazy. It was a lot of work. But we made this show, and it was a dream show. It was something I think that's really unique. I think there's a show on Netflix called Losers that was really good, that used animation and you know, throughout the doc to sort of illustrate these stories of athletes not winning, which is a really great premise. But for Greatness Code, it was about winning, but it was so much about their psyche. Like, what does it feel like to be Shaun White and to be like, get a perfect score, or to, you know, like, and they all had this sort of theme throughout them where they're describing this feeling of being in the zone. Like they used various words to describe it, but it's like this, it's very zen. You don't care. You let go. I don't care what happens. That was when Shaun White was great. He came prepared. I think he practiced for his interview because he had these great, he talked about like he was losing, he wasn't doing well, and he's going up the chairlift and he's like, it was like Mordor. It felt like, you know. So of course we have the POV and like the snow melts and it's like a volcano mountain as it's going up the, you know. So there's all these great like visual metaphors to illustrate. But everybody's had their own unique way of sort of describing it. And great metaphors, like I said, for us to bounce off of and make some kind of trippy visuals. And so my dream came true. That really was like my dream project, to combine sports, doc, and experimental animation and blend them together in this really, really unique way. And I still kind of can't believe it happened.
How long did you have with each episode to animate each episode?
We had, give or take, like 3 weeks, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was like, I would have never been able to do this project at the beginning of my career or the middle of my career. I would have never been able to do the project if I hadn't found the right people, the right really talented animators to work with. There was like some magic chemistry there where everybody got it and everybody worked really harmoniously together. The edits that we had were really great. Our editor Brady made just these great stories, and he would take these interviews and there would be like black holes, you know, and we would talk, and sometimes I'd be like, can you just go to black there? I'm going to put something awesome there. Or I'd be like, oh, can you stay on him longer? I don't know what to do there. Or, you know, we'd have this back and forth. But yeah, when people watch the show and I tell them, you know, like this is why I like to hammer this home about, like, it's not always about having the hugest team, tons of render farms, and tons of, you know, it's not always about that. Yes, that is really nice. And if we had that, maybe some of our shots would have more realistic lighting or something like that. But it really is about, like, what's the story that you're telling, and is that the most important thing? And you know, getting to that more quickly, and, you know, and having shorter episodes, that really helps too. We were making 30-minute episodes.
It was also, it was pretty cool that they actually let you use some of this footage too. You know, a lot of companies will be like, "Oh, this is strictly NDA. You can't ever show that you did it."
Right.
You know, it's nice that you were able to do that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's to the benefit of everybody to know, I think, like, more about how these things are made. Like, it's different than it's different than, again, like advertising, where there needs to be this kind of like mystery, and it's like, this all just came from Apple created this animation, or, you know, it's like, this is the people who are telling the stories, the process, like, everybody has something to gain from knowing more about that, I think, and opening doors to more people doing that kind of storytelling and having more work like that. Like, it's such a unique, you know, I think for the producers of the show, this is like a really unique way of storytelling. It's something they want to let people know about, you know, like it's they took a risk, you know, doing this. And it's amazing. It was amazing, the feedback that we got too from the athletes. Like, they loved it. You know, you would think, because these people are all worth many, many millions of dollars, have big brands. And it very well could have been that they came back and said, no, I don't like that. I would never use that color or something. Like, I think there was like this, you know, a lot of that I think had to do with, you know, Gotham has these great relationships and cultivates them in the conversations that he has, and getting people to open up and share those stories. So there's a lot of trust there. So there's a lot of, you know, that's the ground from which to build. But yeah, I'm again, just so flabbergasted and excited that happened. And I just want to see, like, more work like that. You know, that's really my goal. And it does not being done by me, but being done by others, blending genres, you know, and going into spaces and making work where maybe you wouldn't think that would be made. Oh, I got a what up from Winbush.
There he is. Tell me about this photo right here. Are these real rings here on your hand?
Those are from Amazon.com, and they were like $20.
Oh, really?
You can buy replicas of Tom's rings, which he has more now. Yeah, there was I had this idea. So in Tom Brady's episode, he talks about, you would think one of his, because everybody kind of focuses it around their story around like one particular game or one moment. What's the moment you knew? And you would assume that Tom, having won many, many Super Bowls, would pick a Super Bowl, but he didn't. He chose to talk about this game against Buffalo, where they absolutely like destroyed Buffalo in the game, but they played a perfect game. You know, he's such a football nerd that he's like, we were technically, everything was perfect.
Yeah.
And when he's talking, you can tell how joyful he is. So I thought the visual for this at the end, to see Tom's hand, you know, and he talks about, he's like, that's the unattainable thing. That's the thing I'm always trying to get back to. So the shot in the show is like, you see this hand with all of these rings on it, reaching up, right? It's reaching towards the sky and opens up. And then you see this ring that we made that is like a fake Buffalo versus New England ring that has the score.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like rendered beautifully and rotating, like his hand with all of these rings on it is reaching for this, you know, Buffalo game ring. So we bought those rings, and I bought them. At first I was like, oh, we can like scan them or have them be our base models. But I think Vinny did that shot. I think he ended up just sort of photographing them and using them as like normal maps or something. He did some sort of
funny that you could buy replicas.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that though. Like that story that you're telling me, that's so cool. It's like, I don't know. I dig it. I dig it. Like, yeah, you would think that it would be just a Super Bowl or something, like, but like the perfect game. Like,
yes.
It's like a pitcher, you know, a pitcher wanting to throw a perfect game. It doesn't matter what game it is, you know, just wanting to throw that perfect game.
Speaking of a no-no, and this, my inspiration, the one I always talk about is, there's an animation called the LSD no-no. Have you guys seen it? James, oh God, I'm going to mess up his name. Hold on. I'm going to Google it because I really want everybody to watch this. So
see if I can find it too here.
Doc Ellis and the LSD no-no.
Yeah.
Okay. In this, you know, it's animated illustrations. It's just, but Doc Ellis, there's a recording of him.
Blagan?
Yes, Blagden. Yes.
Blagden.
So Doc Ellis pitched a no-hitter on LSD.
Awesome.
And he tells the story. The way he tells the story is so genius. And then the way they brought it to life with these illustrations and this very, you know, rudimentary but beautiful 2D animation. That was like my North Star. You know, as far as like telling a story, because you see in this piece that like Doc Ellis, you see him, there's illustrations of him, but they're very like stylized, and there's a lot of just like trippy stuff happening, of course, because he's on LSD. But that was the blueprint for me, even though Greatness Code looks nothing like the LSD no-no. It's like that idea of how can you tell a story? How can you center, yes, a real human being that really did something in reality, but like all, you know, human experience and our memories and how we tell stories. It gets, you know, there's so much fun stuff that can imbue the emotion of it and put you there as a viewer to understand it better, rather than just like seeing the footage of Doc Ellis high as a kite, you know, pitching, you know, which is cool too. But yeah, that is one of my most favorite pieces ever, actually.
So now that you've done the dream job, what's the next?
That's
dream
what I was
job,
going to ask too.
Right?
Well, there may be more work in that vein coming, but you know, there was like kind of a fork in the road for me where I finished Greatness Code and then had this opportunity to come and work at Famous Group. And I'd been a freelancer for like 7 or 8 years, and I just finished this project, which took the life out of me. It was like I put my heart and soul into it and really enjoyed it, but was like, okay, what's next? I feel like I need to go to the next thing. And I had this opportunity to come on to Famous in this leadership role, but also one thing that they said, they were like, we want you to continue to do the creative work that you're doing. We're not saying you need to step away or stop doing this direction. So I felt like, oh, I can have it all because I want to keep doing this work. Right. But there was a part of me after all these years of being a freelancer, I missed that connection and that feeling of building something. I was starting to, I never really felt comfortable as a freelancer, feeling like I was starting over every time I finished a job. I would finish a job and then almost immediately, like I couldn't relax. I went on vacation right after Greatness Code and I couldn't relax on my vacation because all I could think about was, what am I doing next? What am I doing next?
Yeah.
It's part of that's just like being obsessive about work and just like being a little bit of a workaholic.
I mean, that's the freelancer mind.
The next Super Bowl ring, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
That's the like, and that's the one might argue, well, that's what great people do, or that you got to be focused on the next thing and you never rest. But I'm like, no, I want to rest. Like, I don't want to rest forever, but yeah, maybe like 2 weeks of like not being stressed out about work would be really cool.
Right.
But anyway, I lost my train of thought. But I took on this job in this position because I was like, I miss that connection, long-term connection, building something, being a part of something bigger than myself, and being a leader, helping to lead, you know, and open doors for people in ways that doors were open for me. I want to do more of that. So, and I had this great relationship with the Famous Group. I've done so much work with them over the years and really know them and trust them, and they know me and trust me. And they're going in, and we are going in this new direction, doing new frontiers with technology and really investing heavily in doing work in mixed reality and in Unreal Engine. That it felt like a big challenge to me. And that's kind of what I always look for. I'm like, what am I afraid of? What am I afraid to do?
Yeah.
What makes me nervous? What makes me unsure if I can do it? And like over the years, my muscle or my instinct of like, lean into that. Whatever it is that like kind of makes you nervous and you're unsure, but you want to do, make sure and lean towards that.
I feel like that's how we felt when we did projection mapping, because projection mapping is so cool, but it's also really hard to do like all the details right, especially if you're the one not just creating the media, but like designing the projection system and making sure everything's aligned and doing. It's like that's so far out of the comfort zone, but when it actually works,
it's magical.
Yeah.
I thought when they asked me to do projection mapping the first time, this is still where I'm like, I'm not a 3D guy, whatever. But this projection mapping, like on a basketball court, you're doing 3D. It's going to be a 3D extravaganza. And like, that was actually my real first like foray into doing a huge 3D project. And there is this like moment where you're like, I think this is going to work. Like, I think this force perspective thing works. It seems to work when I render it out in After Effects and I simulate the camera angle and I'm looking down.
Yeah.
But like, until it's actually on the court and you're standing in the arena watching it work, you're kind of terrified.
We did a virtual set thing a couple months ago, and it was the same thing. It was like, you know, the floor, especially the floor of the stage, had to be rendered out from this extreme perspective in order for it to work straight on, and it was all a guessing game. We didn't even have measurements, and it was so satisfying to get a photo back from the client, and they say it's perfect, it lines up perfect, and you're like, oh
it was really funny because then they gave us measurements afterwards, and I'm like, I'm not gonna bother. It was perfect then when they sent it.
I had this whole thing in the first projection mapping thing we did where I was like, oh, let's shoot the players from a high angle so it looks like they're standing underneath the court and looking up from below, you know? And I did all these like calculations. I'm like, oh, we got to shoot them this height and measuring their height, blah, blah, blah. And then we did a test and like, it was like kind of a shallow angle. And I put it in my computer and looked at it. I was like, that doesn't look right. I was like, can you just jack the ladder up? Just go like really high and like really point down. And we like didn't measure anything. Pointed down, put that in. Okay, it looks perfect. It was like my measuring and stuff was like a total waste. But you know, you only learn those things by actually doing them. You gotta just go. The only way is through.
The only way out is through. That's for sure. That's my motto. I wanted to get to some of the Mograph recommend stuff, but I have a couple links first that I wanted to run through. And there's actually a couple that I'm going to have to add to my notes here that I just thought of during the show. But number one, I did want to talk about Jules's latest tweet, because he's talking about now about render and NFTs, like Render being able to mint, and I wanted you to check that out because it's interesting because even stuff that you haven't minted on the blockchain can technically be minted or attached to a smart contract. So he's put out a series of tweets.
Yeah, what's interesting is the Render network is, I mean, it's all based around the same type of blockchain technology. And, in order to keep track of like who's rendering what and, if render frames are bad, I believe they incorporate these smart contracts so they know which computers are rendering which frames, which is really cool. And because of that, like technically all these frames that you're rendering when you're rendering on Render technically are NFTs already,
Wow.
Right.
And what's I think another tweet that Jules mentioned was, talking about the environmental impact of NFTs and stuff. And he said Render, that's basically a thing of the past with Render, which is
he said
amazing.
Render instantly at no extra cost and environmental impact. We'll mint a tradable ERC 721 NFT of anything on Render. Assets, jobs, scenes, media, metadata, streams, software, etc. All exchangeable.
Yeah.
NFT
That's
items
cool.
on Render and now also ERC 721 marketplaces, which the ERC 721 means that it's not quite as expensive. And there's not as much environmental impact.
So you're talking about like little to no environmental impact, little to no minting fees. It's like that's the future right there.
That is the future.
That's the future.
That's the only way.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna.
I agree. I think that's the only way. Like because as far as the environmental impact of it goes, I'm not 100% sure what all is going on. Some people have said yes, it's really bad. Some people have said it's not so bad. Some are like, it's kind of bad.
And a lot of people are trying to.
I'm kind of more on the it's
information.
It's kind of bad, and I get that. Yeah. That's why I in my opinion are pushing more for this type of stuff.
Right.
This is groundbreaking. Right. This makes it good for the artist and have a clean conscience and stuff. I don't know.
And Luis, my other link here, actually, Luis Miranda puts it great on his TikTok because he's not just doing like videos on his TikTok. He's doing like renders on his TikTok. He's doing videos where he's talking about stuff too. And one came across my TikTok where he's talking about, I forget what the percentage is of companies and in the world that mostly it's them that they're the ones that are causing the big environmental impacts in the world, right?
Yeah.
So you could, a lot of people are doing a lot of commercial work that is for these companies that are the big companies causing the environmental problems, right? So it's like you could render for them all year doing all of these big corporate-y things and contributing to what they're putting in the environment. Or you could do one NFT, and for some people that means a year's salary. And that's it, and just the one. So he had a good take on it, and that's on TikTok.
Interesting thought.
I'll put a link to that so you can check it out if you're still on the fence. And I know a lot of people are. So we're kind of working through this together, trying to figure out, what is the actual environmental impact? Because I really feel like there's a lot of less like conflicting information right now. It's just like, when can we figure out exactly what this is? But then also, how can we make it better? It's
the money part is what makes it so tough. This dangling of you can make so much money is so difficult to resist if you're on the fence about something, but you feel like, this is how I feel. So I'm in a position where I'm like, I'm on the fence, right? So, but I'm watching people barreling past me towards the light, and I'm kind of like waiting. And I think the money part of it and this feeling of like anxiety of, if I don't get in now, it'll be too saturated and I'm going to be missing my opportunity. And that's the part that I think that blasts through all these questions for people of like the environment and the ethics or whatever, all the different things. And I get, you can't argue it. It's hard to argue with that. It is hard out here right now. That the economy and the world we live in, it can be scary. And like, I would never. I've talked to people and I've read a lot of articles and like just within my inner circle about like what the impacts are, the environmental impacts, and trying to gather that information. But like, I had a friend that was like, I understand, but if I can make money on this, I need to do that. I'm like in this position. And I'm like, I would never get in your way or judge you for that. Like, man, life is hard and scary. And like, so, but it is like it's fascinating on an intellectual level and on a technical level. I minted something, but I haven't promoted it because I'm like, let me just go through this process and see what it's like.
I think that's great. I think that's I think everyone should go through that process, because then they not only realize that, it's an awful process to go through, and it costs money to have to do all this stuff. You're like, wait,
we should
I'm
definitely
gonna spend $150 to maybe try and make a couple $100.
Yes. That's where, when people talk about it being like a little pyramid schemey or a little bit like your spider sense, my spider sense went up. I'm like, oh, I just paid a bunch of money. I just paid somebody some money, and now I have to go and promote it on my social channels. And like, it's not like Foundation is going to promote it because I'm not some big name, right? I'm me, and like, that's fine. And that's fine for me to promote it too. I don't even like have a problem with that, but it is like and then all the stuff with like getting a Coinbase, getting a MetaMask, getting my bank account, and like, what does it mean? All those like technical questions. Could this go poof tomorrow? The people that lost their, God, it's all just like, again, intellectually really fascinating. But also,
here's something we
should put a pin in this until the drop.
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure it's in that show, because that's released separately. So just hold on to that. I hate to do this. But
sorry, Dave. You're gonna have to insert that from this
editing.
Yeah.
Put on your editing hat.
No editing. We'll come back. I just wanted to do these two other links real quick, and these are the ones that I didn't have. Number one, I saw that Ren was Ren was playing with this app called Camtrack AR. So I tried it. And what it does is it records video on your phone, but it keeps all the camera data from the phone. It's really cool. So I tried it. I plugged it into After Effects. I had some planes floating around this room in no time. So that's Camtrack AR. There's another one, and I am going to put it in the notes. I don't know the name of it. Phil Roberts told me about it. And essentially what it does is you can take a bunch of photos of somebody, kind of like you would like if you were doing a deep fake or something, right? But you put all the dots on the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and all the features, and it takes all of those photos, and then it takes a like base model of a face, and it turns that model into that face based on those photos and everything. And that's a Blender thing. So I'll try and find
the thing is, I'm pretty sure that exact same plugin is made for Nuke as well. I think Nuke. Because I've seen some Nuke stuff where they talk about things like that. Yeah,
that's really cool.
Super cool
for avatars too. Like if you're making like the idea that you can have a sort of realistic-ish avatar just with a few photos would be sick.
Yeah.
So let's do this then, because again, I want to get back to your NFT conversation. But let's do Mograph recommends really quick. We're going to we'll just dive through these and go through them real quick here. Tell us about your favorite movie.
My favorite movie is, there's many, but I always say American Movie, which is a documentary that came out in the late 90s about a guy named Chris Borchardt, who is a guy who lives in Wisconsin and is a filmmaker and makes horror movies. And it's, I don't want to, you just need to watch it. It's just the story of this guy who is a regular guy that just loves making films, and the people around him and his passion to make his film It's a very like intimate story. But I saw this film in college, and it was like at Sundance, and it's kind of a little bit of a cult classic, but
I'll be right back.
it woke up my mind to documentary and it being something more than, you know, the what's the guy who does the camera pans and the really great PBS docs? His name just slipped my mind.
Ken Burns.
Ken Burns.
Yeah.
That was what I knew of documentary up until seeing this film. So American Movie is what it's called, and it's just, it defies description a little bit, but it's my favorite movie.
Have you seen the new Godzilla versus, what is it? King Kong versus
Kong?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I haven't.
Here's what I'll say, and I think a lot of people agree with me on this, is that the graphics are so good. Like these water sims and all of this, but the story is awful. Like the story was so bad that it was so unbelievable. I know it's a giant gorilla and whatnot, but the story, it's like
it can be that Kong. I liked the Kong movie from whatever it was, 7 years. How long ago was the last Kong?
Yeah, it was a while back.
Film. That was that movie was good. The story, like I was into it. I bought it. So I'm disappointed to hear that because there's a lot of anticipation for the Kong versus Godzilla film. So
I would still say watch it, but it's like, first of all, it felt like it could have ended 80 times. It was so long. It was just like VFX for the sake of VFX. And every time something's over, you're like, okay, disaster averted. Now there's some other random disaster. That's like, it's not even just random. It's like so off the wall that you're like, what is going on? And then the whole time there's this little kid in it that's like the daughter of somebody, and she just keeps being taken on all of these extremely dangerous voyages, you know, and crazy boat and airplane rides. You're like, why would you bring your kid on this? Like, why? Get a sitter. Like, I don't know.
So it's not so bad that it's entertaining. It doesn't delve into the ridiculous Sharknado level.
No, it's not to that point. It's not to that point. And I kind of get the whole feeling of like, you know, just the whole go with it thing. Like you watch a Marvel movie or something, sometimes it's ridiculous. You're like, just go with it. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's not supposed to be, but it was like, what is this story right now? Anyway, I diverted.
I'm still going to watch it.
Yeah, for sure. Because, like, gosh, the water sims, you're like, okay, this has got to be Houdini. Because some of these water sims are so good.
The bubble guy. Back to the Pixar, whoever the water guy is there who's ready. He brought she brought their A game.
There's a water sim or Houdini person who was just like, this is my jam. This is what I was born for. And just made these amazing shots. And
bless him.
So let's talk about music. What kind of music do you like?
It runs the gamut from my favorite two artists of all time are Dolly Parton and Whitney Houston.
And you met Dolly Parton.
I met Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
I used up like 5 years worth of birthday presents with my partner. I was like, listen, we can get meet and greet with Dolly. It will be an exorbitant fee, but I will die a happy person if we could do this. And we did a meet and greet with Dolly, and she was amazing. And she's my favorite. If you guys haven't listened to, I know we're going to ask about podcasts too, but like the podcast, Dolly Parton's America, I can't recommend enough. It's just a great story of her and who she is and why she's more than just, you know, boobs and wigs. Yeah. She's really an American treasure. And
if you've ever seen
such
9
a
to
talent.
5, I mean,
great movie.
I've seen 9 to 5 so many times. I really have.
Dolly Parton's movies are really good. Actually, Straight Talk is also a really fun watch, except James Woods is not my favorite. But Straight Talk is really a cute movie. She like stumbles into a radio to be a receptionist, and then she gets put on the mic, of course, and she's very charming and then becomes the most popular radio host in Chicago. It's fantastic.
What year was that? Was it late 80s, early 90s?
Yes. I'm going to guess like 92.
Yeah.
I think that movie came out.
Yeah.
And my mom's from Knoxville.
Oh,
And
nice.
Dolly's from right outside of Knoxville, so we used to watch her movies when I was a kid, and I think that was how I knew her more was for her '80s movies than I knew her for her music. But
me
then in
too.
college, I got really into her music. I've been to like a bunch of her concerts, and like, yeah,
I'm guessing you've been to Gatlinburg then.
I have.
Oh,
I have. I actually
Gatlinburg.
went to Dollywood right before I moved to Hollywood. With when I was moving out to Los Angeles, my mom and I made a little pilgrimage down there and went to Dollywood and had a great time.
I've stayed at the Gillette Motel in Gatlinburg so many times.
I haven't been since that time. I've never been to. Is that like a cool hotel there?
It is a motel.
Oh, hotel, sweet, even better.
Yeah, it's exactly what you'd expect from a motel. I love that whole area though. You know,
Yeah.
that whole area, Knoxville, Gatlinburg, all of that.
The Smokies are great.
Yeah, like I totally knew her from 9 to 5 to start out.
Yep.
And who was your other favorite? Who's your other favorite?
Oh, Whitney Houston.
Whitney Houston. Yeah.
I love like '90s R&B. I was really into R&B and hip hop as a youth, and then when I got a little older, I went to college and I started listening to punk and the Smiths, and I got into I'm from the suburbs of Cincinnati, so a lot of the music, like my parents listened to a lot of like soul music, and then in high school, I listened to a lot of pop music and like Fish and stuff like that. But then I really had my ears opened up to a lot of different types of music when I got to college, and I listen to everything now. My work playlists are like totally psychotic. They just go from like Kylie Minogue to like, Death Grips to Barbra Streisand, or I don't know. It's really weird.
Yeah. My Spotify sometimes is like George Strait followed by Skrillex.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we make our own life soundtrack, and it's unique.
Right. Now, what about TV shows?
I have weird TV tastes too. I watch, I really like, because I work very hard, I like to just really kind of check out when I watch TV. So I don't get into a lot of the big story-driven stuff as much. I bought Discovery Plus, and I love watching like Triple D and home improvement shows. But I'll tell you one show that I like really enjoy on Netflix is the show about F1. It's called like F1
yes.
but it is such, I mean, even if you like don't care about race car driving, it does such a good job of introducing you to the sport and showing you the sort of drama and how exciting the sport is. It's just a really well done series, and all the intricacies too, and the battles between like the team principals and like whose car, and like the sort of cattiness of like, oh, you can't do that modification, and like there's like some real techie kind of stuff, and there's like the Goliaths and the Davids, the people that don't have as much money but they still manage to like do well, and then all the drivers themselves. So we just finished binging season 3 of the F1 show on Netflix, which I like. Cool. I'm super into.
I'm gonna have to check it out because I'm super like out of stuff to watch.
Yeah,
that's the issue.
I got 3 seasons for you. You can bust through those like in a week probably.
Totally.
Yeah, like even if you're not into race car driving, I think there's something in it for everybody.
Now Kevin says that the Netflix F1 series is good, but Breaking Bad is the best show he's ever seen, except maybe The Wire. I'll have to check those out.
Those are classics. You can't give those answers when somebody asks this show. It's like, yeah, of course.
And Solar Opposites is back on Hulu, by the way, which is a great show.
I don't know that one.
Whoa, man, it is so good. It's
Justin Roiland, creator of Rick and Morty.
Okay, yes.
Got his own.
A lot of people.
New Rick and Morty, June 20th.
Yeah.
Is it on Hulu? Are they on Hulu also?
Rick and Morty is. Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. It is.
I don't know if it still is. It's on HBO Plus or HBO whatever it is now, but
Max.
HBO Max. But the thing about Solar Opposites, and Winbush and I were talking about this actually, is we sometimes feel like Solar Opposites is better than Rick and Morty sometimes.
Really?
On the episode, yeah. Really, really, it's one of those things where there's only 8 episodes a season, but you've almost got to go back and watch them like a bunch of times. You'll miss jokes. I mean, it's just on. And I love
Yeah.
those because those are the ones you can go back and watch like 4, 5, 6 times an episode, and just every time there's more and more to take in. So
Yeah. Those are the best. Rewatches are the best.
yeah. The other thing is, and I've mentioned it before, but For All Mankind, if you haven't seen that on Apple.
I did. I watched the first couple episodes. I need to go back.
So
It's
good.
on. It's I remember it's on Apple TV Plus, which is also where my show is
Right.
on. That was good. That show was good, and the Reese Witherspoon, series on that network was good too. The news desk one. What the heck was it called?
Morning Show, right?
Morning Show.
I didn't like it. I don't know. Like I was expecting with Jennifer
cast.
Aniston and with that cast, that it wasn't going to be serious. I thought it was going to be funny. And I had no idea what it was going into it, and I was like, "Ooh,
It was heavy.
I'm not. Yeah, this is a little too heavy. I need The Office. I need to go back to The Office."
See, that's what I need. Light fare. Like I watched that show, and I can't do it. I can't. My girlfriend watches The Bachelor, and she sucks me into that show, and I like that. Those are things that my brain can handle. Especially
Have you watched Ted Lasso?
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
So good.
So good.
So good.
That's what I'm talking about. The kind of show that you want to sit down and watch. Like at the end of the day, that's not gonna destroy your soul and make you have bad dreams and stuff. I remember, speaking of Breaking Bad, remember binging that and then going to bed and being like, am I a bad person? It's just
or feeling like you were in the show. You're like, how am I gonna get out of this one?
Yeah,
no, wait,
exactly.
It's not me.
Exactly. Having dreams and being filled with anxiety and I can't do that anymore. My constitution can't handle it. I'm too old.
The chat's talking about the wall subplot. There's a subplot inside of Solar Opposites that's so good. It's a whole nother show inside the show. It's really good. Yeah.
That's funny.
That's cheap.
It's not really a spoiler, so I can say this, but essentially there are people who are shrunk down by the aliens in the show. And they put them inside this little wall where there's a whole nother mini person wall story going on about
meta.
Yeah, it's meta story. In fact, the 7th episode of the 2nd season, I think might have done this the first season too, is a whole episode devoted to it.
Yeah, they did it in the first season because I've only seen the first season or part of it.
It's so good.
Yeah,
I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's amazing how much story there is that's pulled out of that, even though you only get these little snippets of them throughout 8 episodes. So, yeah. Any other podcasts? Speaking of which,
I listened to, Dolly Parton's America was really good. I always listen to Design Matters, Debbie Millman podcast where she interviews a lot of different people in the design world. I love Brene Brown's podcast. I don't know if you guys know who Brene Brown is. Brene Brown is great. She's she did this TED Talk years ago. She's an expert on shame and there's certain things in psychology, but anyway, she does this work now where she speaks about leadership and speaks about being really vulnerable and honest. And I'm doing a bad job of summarizing Brene Brown. She's from Texas. She's a real talker. She's not oh, crystals and floaty things. She's talks very straight, but is very for me again working with people more and getting outside of my little computer in my box and thinking about how I interact with the world, how I interact with the people that I work with, and even things that have come up. She did a great job and interviewed some great people around, when George Floyd was murdered and the subjects and the turmoil and the things we're still dealing with today with racism. She talks about that. Anyway, Brene Brown is just somebody I really like listening to, and I like listening to Creative Pep Talk, which Andy J. Pizza. His episodes, it just feels like you're kind of just he's an illustrator, and there's something about the way that he talks. I'm not an illustrator. I don't work in his world, but it's just him talking most of the time, just about creativity and trying things, and it's just kind of a wholesome creative podcast. He has guests on sometimes, but it really is just about sort of something kind of lighter and just helps you ask questions about yourself and how you're working and can offer some insight. But There's also a basketball one that I listen to as well. I love basketball, so I nerd out on basketball podcasts.
And what about plugin? Not non-render engine. We'll specify. What's your favorite plugin?
I think if I like had to pick one that I could, like, you only have to use native plugins in After Effects, but you can have this one plugin. I'd probably pick Particular.
Okay.
Track Particular is like a powerful little guy, and you can do a lot of fun, interesting stuff with it, and add some details, add some anywhere from like dust to like making bigger particles and doing strange things with it. I like, but I may be old school. There's some little ones too that do really particular things. Not Trapcode Particular, certain things that might be specific that make, for me, plugins is just about like doing something faster. That's all it really is. Like, there's plenty of things that you could do with native plugins if you spent the time to add them all up and tweak all the different settings. The other one I use a lot, I do love using Red Giant Universe sometimes, like in Magic Bullet Looks, just to get a color correction or a flavor or something into my, a bloom or a glow or one of my favorite tricks I used to do, I don't do this as much anymore, is doing the pop filter in Magic Bullet Looks, which gives it this sort of like fake HDRI, like crunch.
Oh yeah, like that high contrast.
Yeah.
Not quite the David Hill style, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah. And it is a little bit, I don't think it's dated, but it's like you got to do it with a deft hand, especially if you have the more you get into 4K and doing beautiful stuff. You don't want to be so heavy-handed with it, but especially in the sports world, you get these things that have a kind of a glow to them, and a softness, and it's like, I just need to like crunch that in a more sophisticated way than just, doing an S curve.
Right.
So that little pop, just jack the pop up all the way up. The Magic Bullet Looks was like my go-to.
Make it pop. That's right.
Make it pop. Why not?
What about your go-to muscle memory app on your phone?
My muscle memory app is Instagram. Twitter. Oh God, I'm addicted to Twitter. I had to delete it for a while. I don't say much on Twitter. Like, I'm a retweeter, but it is like the most addictive, crazy app. I do have to go through periods where I have to stop using it because it's just the dopamine, the refresh and everything. It's just but it is funny and entertaining too. And there's some really funny, if you get into those, grooves of groups of people and that just funny on Twitter. Like, I have so many screen grabs of tweets that I just go back and will read. My favorite one was somebody that said, when I sign an email best, it's short for I am the best. Okay. I was like, that's funny. And my trigger finger one that I love is, and I guess you can do it now if you have a LiDAR new iPhone, but Skinect. Like, I love 3D scanning stuff.
Oh yeah, me too.
I love 3D scans. I love bringing, real stuff from the real world into, the Mograph world. That's kind of like a thread you might see in some of my work, but I love the fact that I can scan something with my phone. Even on my little logo thing, on my reel, this is before you could do it with your phone. I took a Xbox Kinect and scanned myself with it and just kind of moved it around myself, and it was messy on the edges. And it looks, oh wait, Skinect is the one. I'm sorry. Skinect is the one I used on my computer with the Kinect. The one on my phone is called Turnio, Trnio.
Okay. I have so many 3D scan apps. I've been doing that with home remodeling projects and things, like scan stuff and bring it into Cinema and figure out what I'm going to do first with measurements and.
Oh, that's cool.
Previs.
Yeah, Turnio. Let me see if I can see that.
Trnio. Does it do well? It's $5.
It does.
Am I going to love spending this $5?
I'll pay you back if you don't like it. How about that? I'll give you a money back guarantee.
I'll send you an invoice.
It's very easy to use. I will Venmo you $5.
Couple ether.
I'm not endorsed by them. I don't know the people at Turnio.
That's cool.
Do you play video games?
I used to. I love to play. Skyrim is my favorite video game of all time. Love that. Skyrim and Red Dead Redemption. That's it for me. Those are like the video games.
Except
and
that 45-minute intro that you have to do on Skyrim.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, actually, the same for Red Dead. Yeah, they have a really long intro as well, I guess.
You know what I like to do is go into Red Dead Redemption and play poker.
Oh, that's funny.
The dumbest thing ever, but it's like super relaxing. And then get up, maybe ride my horse around or something. But like, yeah, I love open world games. But the problem, I get sucked into them and then I play them and it's like an all or nothing thing, you know? And I have to like abstain. And there's just so much software to learn that I just like don't have time to play if I'm going to be looking at a screen.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to be learning something. But I'm hoping like if I retire one day, I really do want to play a lot of video games. I want to be that cool old lady with the headset.
Right.
That you know, there was like a video once, I think, of a lady that loved Skyrim. Was like obsessed with Skyrim. Do you remember that?
Grandma.
Yes.
A grandma gamer or something. Yeah.
And I tried to play. I'm terrible at online games. Like I tried to get Elder Scrolls online.
Oh yeah.
And there's all these. I'm running into a cave and there's like 30 people running into the cave with me. Like, who are you? Why are you in my Skyrim right now? Like, this is a private place.
Jenkins.
Yeah, everybody Leroy Jenkinsing all over me. And that's not why I play video games. I want to be alone in my little like fantasy world and like make potions and like smite dragons. And that's it.
Yeah, I enjoy just like going to my yacht in GTA and just hanging out or going to the bar and playing darts.
See?
You know?
Just sometimes you just want to chill. Bros just want to be dudes and you just want to go and play poker and you just want to play darts.
So meta. It's so meta. It's like I want to go to my virtual yacht inside of a game and play some virtual darts with some virtual friends.
Don't fight it.
Pretend that the world isn't the way it is right now.
Oh, I got an Oculus Quest recently.
Oh, that's my escape. That is
so much fun. It just is like addicting though, where I've kind of had to set it down and walk away a little bit because I'm like, I can't be putting this thing on for like long periods of time. I can't do it. So,
I've been sitting in my moon pod. It's like a beanbag chair, and I'll put it on, and they have this section in there that's just like cool 360 videos, but they're in stereo. It's not like the like flat 360 videos. It's like really good. Like the slow-mo guys or whoever they are, they do slow-mo stuff now in 3D. And so you can see these 3D like slow-mo videos that they do of stuff, and it's in your face and 3D or flying through a mountain. And it's like, man, this is so nice because I've been in the same room for about a year.
Yeah, it is. I do like the more chill experiences. There's like a meditation app. I think it's called Trip with 2 P's, and they have these like it's still like, because it's like it's like mobile level graphics.
Right.
Like it's not perfect, but it's enough that you like buy it. And if you just let yourself kind of relax and have fun with it,
it's called Trip.
It's great.
See, I got to look this up because I'm looking for more stuff like that. Like super, like don't get me wrong. I love playing Beat Saber and doing all that stuff. Sometimes I want to put on the headset and just sit there and look around.
Yeah. That's Trip's a good one. They actually have, what's the other one? There's like a workout one that has meditation in it. Supernatural.
Yes.
Both of these, I think you have to get like subscriptions, which is annoying, but I think they'll give you some starter content. But Supernatural is good because they use, instead of trying to use videos to give you these 360 like landscapes, what they're really doing is taking like high-res photos and then giving them life. So they'll like put some water animation in there, maybe animate the sky. So it's like, it feels like real enough, but they just animated just the essential parts to make it feel alive, but the resolution's really nice. So that's a
cool.
Good way to approach that low-res problem.
All right, last one. And then we got to go to the drop because Matt's got a heart out.
I do.
Life hack. And Mitch Meyer's example is turn your toaster on its side for some bomb ass grilled cheese.
This one, I'm like terrible at life hacks. And I like sat there and tried to think of some great life hack. And I just came up with like go to bed at the same time every night.
That's pretty good.
That's a good life hack.
That is kind of a good life hack, I guess. Yeah.
I really believe in sleep. Like and it's hard. I'm sure a lot of people in the audience, people in our work, don't sleep. We're like, whatever, I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Yeah.
You know? But, and that works, I think, up until a certain age. And then like things are going to start cricking and creaking and not working the same. Your brain might slow down. And I really believe that sleep is like the fountain of youth. And I'm like a real like data geek. I have this Whoop strap, and this is like for real athletes, which I'm not at all. I'm very sedentary, but it's like a fitness tracker, but it tracks all this crazy amount of data. WHOOP is the name of it, but it tells you like your resting heart rate, your HRV, and like your sleep, consistency. It gives you all this like really dorky stuff to look at. And
I would not want to know any of that information. It'd be like, why are you still alive?
Right. And and that works for us guys we can do that for a while. But once we start getting, where we're getting, like, you gotta, and sleep is like, to me, like working out and like eating really healthy. Sometimes that's like, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
But sleep is something like you can try and do. Like, try not to look at your phone when you're in bed. Try to just get in bed at the same time every night. Like, if you can do that, like, you're gonna be happier and healthier, and your brain's gonna fire a lot more quickly, and you're not gonna get burnt out as much. You won't be as sad. It's like I'm a big sleep dork, so go to sleep. That's my advice.
All right, well, I think we are ready to do the drop. Are you ready, Matt?
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Drop. Is this the fucking mic? Drop. This is exactly what I should be doing.
What's up, and welcome to this week's episode of The Drop, your weekly source for all things NFT and crypto art, as well as upcoming drops by notable people in the Mograph industry. Joining us today is Lauren Fisher. Super excited about some of the drops. It's a weird week. I'll say that for some of the bigger drops. Notably, especially among like the nifty drops that I was watching. But there are a few very notable artists that we should talk about.
Yeah, and I know you're on a time crunch, Matt. So we'll tear through these today.
Yeah, hold on. Sorry, I'm looking for the notes. Where are they?
That's for true.
The drop list. Here we go. All right, so let me open up this real quick. First up, I'm gonna skip the community drops first. We'll go to the actual
Nifty first.
Cool. So Nifty today, Arbin Villasuelu. I'm messing that up totally. Arbin did a drop on Maker's Place, I believe, like a week or two ago, and they are doing a drop on Nifty Gateway. It's a lot of the super similar. Super similar, like very what is it?
Satisfying.
I lost my
What are you
there you go.
Satisfying.
Seriously satisfying animations and stuff like that. So that's good. Next up, we got on the 6th. That was today, by the way. So if you don't catch this, sorry. Go to the secondary market on 4/6 tomorrow, Tuesday. Fuck Render and Zed are doing a
Nice.
They did a collab together. They're doing a drop on Nifty, which is cool. Next up, 4/7, we've got G-Monk. G-Monk's doing another drop on Nifty, which is great. G-Monk stuff is really, it's good stuff, and it's sold really well. It's weird. A lot of people aren't like showing off. I wish people would show off the work that they're trying to sell instead of just waiting until the day of the drop.
Or preview.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Also, I just wanted to notate this because I think it's stupid,
Okay.
But Forbes is
Like
doing
the
a drop.
magazine?
So, like the magazine is doing a drop on Wednesday on the 7th.
That's
which
interesting.
I don't know what that's about. I feel like it's a cash grab, but I could
You would
be
hope
wrong.
that it wouldn't be. But,
Right. I don't know. What are they gonna do? Like sell their the cover of their I don't know.
Slam did that. Slam magazine is doing a cover drop. So maybe it's a journal, like a magazine sort of media a way to, like, a brand, you know, there's a lot of brands that are trying to get into it. So I'm sure that's all along those lines of,
Yeah.
it's content, you know?
Yeah.
And also, like, it's like, maybe it is a cash grab, but maybe it just is like more of like an earned media or whatever thing to get attention, to say we're dropping an NFT to be a part of that culture, you know? Or
Yeah.
Francisco in the chat said, dropping some stock tips. There you go. I don't know. I'm curious if it's like because the Winklevoss twins own Nifty, you know, it's like, oh, Forbes, you should totally do an NFT. It's like, no, you guys are so out of the realm.
See.
Whatever.
You never know.
Yeah,
Maybe they'll
interesting.
surprise us.
Yeah. On the 8th, which I believe is what, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Stuart Lippencourt, Stuzor is doing another drop, which I made a lot of money off of Stuzor. I bought 3 of his drops for $200 each, and I sold all together for around $3,600. So I was very happy about that one. Hopefully, I don't know what he's planning on price-wise doing this time, but I always think Stuzor is a great investment. You know, if you're looking to get in, if you're looking to do collecting stuff.
Yeah.
So. Then 4/11, which I believe is Saturday or Sunday, Rhymes Like Dimes again is doing another drop. Yeah, I know. Like they were on
Making
our first
money.
drop episode, I think.
Yeah.
You know, is doing another, and it's some sort of special secret weird one. I don't know. He hasn't. They haven't teased anything. So yeah. Moving over to Maker's Place. So Justin Roiland is doing a drop, which this one is actually very cool versus some of the ones that he's done on Nifty. This one's he's actually like auctioning off some of the scans of the original ideas between Rick and Morty and stuff like that, which I think is very cool. I say if he was going to do that, I thought that was a good one. Now, one thing to keep in mind, that's today. It could be happening now. I don't know. But there's a $1 raffle that I think everyone should hop on to try and get the $1 raffle, because the thing is with the $1 raffle, it costs you $1, but if you win it, you can resell it for like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, you know. Same with the Beeple one. The Beeple, he dropped one for $7 to 7 people, and like they were going for like $300,000. So it's like for the small amount, you know, I don't know. You've got a better chance of winning that than you do the lottery.
All right.
So you know, if you're willing to, you know, I mean, it'll pay it back no matter what, and you only have to pay it if you win. You know. So you don't have to pay it to enter.
Then there's no reason to not do it.
There's no reason not to. Yeah, it's like free
Everybody
money.
wins.
It's free real estate.
Free real estate.
And speaking of hopping on it, we got some community drops, including the first one.
I'm so excited about Brandon Parvini's. So Brandon Parvini did a drop on Foundation, and this one, I saw this one last night, and it is gorgeous. This is the level that I want to see in NFT drops.
Right.
Like
meaningful.
That is so good.
Because that's the question. And Michael was asking, aren't all drops cash grabs? And I don't think so. I think they're about the art. Of course they're going to make money, but it's not like about just throwing anything out there. It's doing something
and
for
so
the
this
art.
is something that I was going to bring up earlier on the show, was that I think the NFT space as it is changing. At first, and I said this on Slack a few days ago, it used to be all about just a cash grab, and all of us had this like serious FOMO about getting in. Well, it's hot and let's make some money and stuff like that. And the thing is, there was that, but I think the bubble has bursted. You know, like you can't buy something on Nifty and then turn around and flip it like a day later for twice as much money unless it's certain people, right? And I think the ones who already made their name in this space are going to stay popular within that space. And then the ones who didn't, this is just going to become a way of life for a lot of artists, where especially once you get like the renders, you know, RNDR, you know, the Otoys who are making it to where there's minimal minting fees and minimal
It's gonna become a regular thing.
It's just going to become a regular
and you'll
thing.
have other people who rise to the top still, all that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and it's once those collectors start finding these people, it's going to be just like an Instagram following. You know, it's going to be the next Instagram. You post your NFT, people can buy it. You can do, you know, collections or whatever, and then there you go. You keep making money off of it, and I think it's great. I think it'll be a great once we get to that place where you know the environmental aspects are a thing of the past, the minting fees are a thing of the past. Once we get to there, I think this is going to become the new thing for artists. This is a new way for them to make money. You know, residual income, not just their main income.
Right.
So,
all right, we got a bunch more. Let's
yeah,
roll
I know.
through.
I'm sorry. I'm trying.
Community.
Next up, we've got Noah Wool. Noah Wool. I love the character. I think the character is great. You know, like I love the skin shading and stuff like that. It's really, really cool. Really pretty stuff. I'm gonna mess everyone's name up. Nico Rocco. In our in our Slack. I thought this one was really pretty. You know, piece is called Elevation. That one is over on Rarible. Next up, we got Garrett Appleton. Did a drop on OpenSea. Yeah, super cool.
Cube 2 Hypercube.
Cube 2 Hypercube. Very fun stuff. Love the smoke there. Next up, we got. I'm surprised this one hasn't been sold yet. Gustav at Botched. Mm-hmm. If you this one is over at Rarible. Like this one
needs
is
to be on
fantastic.
Foundation. I'm just saying.
I know.
I feel like this
know.
needs to be on Foundation.
It is so pretty, so pretty. I love that one. Like, yeah, absolutely super killer. I mean, they've already sold 4 of them, 4 out of the 7. So I don't know. It's, you know, against the moral code to drop it somewhere else, right?
Well, you'd have to burn it on one and then move it to the other, but yes.
Yeah.
Or you could transfer it for sure. There's ways to do that. So.
Next up, we got Gav Grant. Gav Grant did a piece called Fairy Tale. Really beautiful. That's so pretty.
He's got a couple things out right now too. If you look at his accounts, check that out.
Man, I love the smoke in the background or the fog. That's super cool. Man, we got a lot of people, a lot of community. Scott Unruh. Scott Unruh did a piece called Breathing Eden. Oh, that's fun. I like that. That's cool. Yeah, composition's nice too. Dave in the glitchy OBS transition is fire. Next up, Smearballs.
That's
just another day at the office. I love I love Smearballs stuff, and he just posted something on Super Rare.
Great. I think I saw Paul Babb is the one who posted this. Where
he is.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, no.
Of course, Smearballs.
Of course,
unique
right.
style.
And then you've got
No surprises here.
He just smacks her face in the cake.
Yeah, this is
so
great.
good. Yeah, I was watching that and I was like, man, I remember those days working in an office and having to. Oh god, it was awful.
Yeah.
Cubicles.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, Mitch Myers. Mitch Myers did a drop. Mitch Myers Observers.
Cool
This
fire.
was real cool fire. Yeah, so pretty. I love that.
Nice.
Like you get like a story with it. You know, I love those drops. You know, versus just I guess a regular looping animation. Aaron Sorensen. Didn't we did this
We might
one
have
last
talked about this last week. Now that I think about it, but yes.
I said I wanted to see just a little bit more, or I wanted it to loop.
Yeah.
But it's very pretty. Sorensen does such good work. Such good work. I love the work Aaron Sorensen does. Next up, Will, aka Revelo. Just did a drop. This one is on Foundation. Knee Deep in Paradise. That's what it's called. Very pretty. Love it. I told him to. What did I tell him to name one the other day? It was Fish Fingers and Custard. It was a Doctor Who reference. I told him the name, and he did. Let's see. Next up, Travis Davids.
Yeah, I love the presentation of this.
Yeah, is that a drop on Maker's
It's
Life?
3 different drops.
Oh,
and so each one is like through this viewing hole, like with a person looking at it. I really love how this was done. Such a great idea.
Super pretty.
Yeah. And,
Next up, Luis Miranda is doing a drop on Maker's Place.
Now this one is like a redo because
originally because he was worried about the
Five Nights at Freddy's IP.
Five Nights at Freddy's.
Which
yeah,
is good. This is the right way to do it. You know, he went back and redid his original render like this, and and it looks great, and it's just
looks
different
great.
enough to not
Yeah.
violate any sort of copyright or anything.
It's an homage.
Not much. Phil Roberts. Oh boy,
Yes.
oh gosh.
Yeah, the
So I
Jesus
guess
Christ
to
Easter
celebrate
edition.
Easter, he did a Jesus Christ Easter edition. Okay.
So
cool.
buff.
Yeah.
So buff.
Yeah, I thought that one would go over a lot better than it did.
Yeah.
Apparently,
I don't know.
it sold one, and the one person is our friend Joe.
Yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, so get your hands on that. Those are going fast.
Next up, Jan Sledecko, Space Struggle Episode 4. If you followed
Yeah.
Jan's work, Jan does some super awesome stuff.
All the astronaut
this
things.
one is the fourth one in his series. I
Yeah.
love it. It's so cool, so pretty.
And he's going to be on in a few weeks or so, I think.
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
about a
totally.
month, I think.
And see, you always get a really with Jan stuff.
Yeah,
like I think
really
that's
good.
That's the way to do it. All right. Also, Zomax, Cornelius Damrick is doing a drop on April 18th. That's for Nifty Gateway, right?
It's for Nifty. That's going to be a big one. And he's got
That
this
is
little
gonna be a big
teaser.
Yeah. So if y'all, everyone knows Cornelius. I mean, the 52 hertz.
Yeah.
Classic.
Octane
Yeah,
render.
classic. 6088 AD.
Did you notice this? Did you notice the end of this thing where it
I
says
did
April
see
18th?
that it says
the 8 kind of hangs.
Yeah.
The 8.
Yeah.
What's up with that? Does it have to do with
I don't
Crypto
know.
888?
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
So keep that one. On your radar.
Yeah.
Next up.
That's it.
No, that's it. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
We're
The
not
other-
doing Andy's.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
I
Andy
forgot
Needham
about
also did a
Andy's.
drop.
Where did I put that?
Foundation. It's in your notes.
Is
Bob
it?
Foundation.
Is it?
Oh, what lies within.
What notes? I guess that's
The drop notes on Notion.
on the new one. That's why. Okay.
Oh, by
Sorry.
the way, Lauren,
Yes.
I found that student film. Some listeners
Yeah.
found the student film
We'll
that you were
put that in
talking
the
about
notes,
earlier.
too.
Yeah, we'll put
Yeah.
that one in the notes.
Here's
I just
Andy
sent it to
Needham.
you.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
there's Andy's. Yeah. So super pretty. I love it. I think it's great.
Wait, somebody
So-
found wormholes?
Yeah.
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 Yes.
It's on YouTube.
God, I look for it every once in a while and can't. So I'm glad somebody put it up there.
All
Yeah,
right, that
Andy's
is
real
it
pretty
for
here.
community drops and everything. I'm surprised. I didn't realize there were that many community drops this week. So
Yeah, there were
I
a
thought it
lot.
was going to be kind of a slow week when I was going through the Nifty and everything. The thing is with Nifty and I'm not dogging on any of the other artists who are dropping this week but they're not in the Mograph universe per se.
Yeah.
And I do kind of pick and choose
Yeah, we do
my
try to come
favorite.
at with
I'm
that
sorry
angle,
to
you know.
some who I don't pick. Art is subjective, and since I'm the
Right.
subjective one who's picking it, I get to
Hey,
choose who gets.
It's your show. You get to
Your
pick,
boss.
right?
I'm focused.
That's
Yeah, it's my show. I get to choose. So, but if anyone is doing, any listeners are doing any drops in the next week or so, feel free to hit us up and let us know. We'll feature it on the podcast.
And Lauren, we were talking earlier, and we're almost out of time here, but we were talking earlier about the fact that some people are on the fence about doing NFTs. What do you think would really get you to say yes? I've got to go do an NFT. What would be your thing?
Gosh. Well, I mean, I think resolving the environmental question a little bit, and I think it also it's very mysterious. Like I signed up I got a foundation invite, and so I'm on foundation. I minted something just to go through the process,
Right.
and see what it's like. And I was telling you guys that I haven't promoted it yet because I'm still trying to learn. There's so many facets of what NFTs, what this new sort of world is, and the conflicts are not just one. It's not just the environmental stuff. It's the money and who's profiting from it, who the platforms are, who's running them, where's and how, for me, honestly, what makes me nervous is the sheer amount of money that
Yeah.
is being
Yeah.
thrown around. Now, on the
Yeah.
smaller level, like if it's like you're collecting your friends and they're collecting you, and it's this
Mhm.
way of like supporting each other, and
Yeah.
that to me, that's really cool. This
Yeah.
bigger thing where you're talking like tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, whatever, and the potential and the it's not just greed. I do, like I said, I understand people seeing an opportunity and wanting to make money, especially artists. We get
Yeah.
hosed all the time.
We
But
do.
when I start seeing those levels of money, my little like red flag goes up, like kind of like, wait, where's this money coming from? And like,
Yeah.
who is who? If it feels too good to be true, is it?
Right.
And what are the implications of that? And so I guess for me, it's a little bit coming from this place of like wanting to know more about that, but on the creative level and the community level and the potential, everything that you were talking about at the beginning of this episode about it becoming this true place to share, to collect, to have it really be that. The pure aspirations of it are really intriguing, and I hope that starts to get more of a foothold. And the other parts of it are the question is like, is the underbelly of it or whatever, is that intrinsic to it? Like, does it,
Right.
it has to be that way? It's built on that, or is it something that can evolve and change and come into the light and be something that everybody can get a grasp on and understand what they're doing from start to finish? Because there is this mystery again. Like I'm signing up for something called MetaMask. I'm signing up for
Yeah.
this thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, okay, all right. Like I'm going through these steps, and I'm so excited. I'm getting that satisfaction of I have a drop, I have a thing there, I'm connected with other artists, but then it's like I'm still like waiting for that one moment to like really dive in feet first and be like, hey everybody, this is my drop, and this is like,
Right.
because I am just like, I want to know what I'm endorsing,
Right.
And part of it too is just like me educating myself as well and spending all it takes is time, so that anyway, that's I'm on the fence, but I'm not completely rejecting it. Like I said, I've minted something. I'm not telling anybody about it. I just told a lot of people, I guess, but it's definitely, it's fascinating. That's my takeaway right now, is just intellectually as an artist. And us, I mean, imagine us like Mograph people. We've always for so long felt like we were in the art world or the creative world, these kind of people over here in our own little lunch table, and now we're at the center of something that's so huge in the art world. And I have people that reach out to me that are like, weren't you doing NFTs, all your work, and you could do so much and you could be da-da-da. I'm like, I know, but I'd like, it feels weird to be hopping into something that I don't quite understand.
It'll
But
normalize.
I'm happy for the homies though, like I'm really happy for this community that I'm a part of and that I've been watching grow over the last, 15, 20 years, even have this moment in the sun in a way. And I just hope it continues to be, I want it to be a really positive thing and not something tainted by weirdness. Because there are some great pure things to come from it when it comes to creativity and community and sharing your art, and collecting. So
Totally.
there you go.
Totally. I think that I think the prices as well, I think they're going to start to normalize, because as of right now, with them being like 1 Ether, 2 Ether, 3 Ether, it's like, oh man, that's really expensive if I want to collect one of my friends' works. It's like, I love my friends, but I don't have $2,000 to spend on them. My wife would kill me if I spent $2,000 on a friend's work.
Right.
But it's like, I think that I would think once we see the mint fees and all this other stuff go away, things will be a lot more, a lot more obtainable, especially,
Yeah.
So what we got for the drop, Matt?
That's all I got.
All right.
Let's thanks for joining us on the drop. If you've got community drops, hit us up, let us know. In the meantime, we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Hit us up at info@mograph.com. Send us your drop. All right, here we go. See you later.
Drop. Is this the fucking mic drop? This is exactly what I should be doing.
All right.
I
think that about wraps it up. I think we're going to finish the show. You can rate us on iTunes, leave a review. You can also subscribe on your podcatcher of choice. Helps get our ratings up. You can subscribe to our newsletter. I think might be going out this week if I can make it happen. You can say you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt with the Mograph logo tee, the Paul Babb Feel the Bab 2020 shirt, classic. All the profits from that goes to Doctors Without Borders. The Render Things t-shirt, hoodie, and long sleeve tee, the That Render is Fire shirt, which you're only allowed to wear ironically, unless you're Shams. Who's going to be on the show soon? Is that next week?
I don't know. It might be.
I can't remember now. I have to go back and look. And then lastly, the Mograph Blandishment shirt, which you can get. And we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Mograph.com. Lauren, thanks for being on the show. Yeah, Shams will be
on. Lauren, thank you so much.
This was awesome. Thank you guys so much for inviting me. What an honor.
This was a good show. I feel like it's going to become a staple show that we can send people to and say, here's a good example of what we should be doing every week.
Well-rounded show. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. If people want to find you online, where can they find you at?
They can go to my website is laurenfisher.com or thelaurenfisher.com if you want to use the. And my Instagram is Lauren Fisher Studio. No C in Fisher. Those are my two. I won't tell you to go to my Twitter because you don't need to go there. Instagram is a great place to talk to me. Yeah.
Cool.
And I love it. I'd love to hear from anybody out there.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. Well, that about wraps it up. Thanks for watching, everybody, and listening. And until next time, I'm Dave.
I'm Matt.
I'm Lauren.
Have a good one.
Later, yo.